I think it's time to go.
Hills and hollers of southern Indiana to the Lone Star State of Texas. We are the hunters of the paranormal. Truth seekers, mount up.
Howdy, Truth Seekers. We're back again with another awesome show, and you guys are not going to believe who we have tonight. We've got Lance Hightower from Monsters 911. And he has got an awesome show. He is an awesome awesome host, and he's just an all-around good guy. How's it going, Lance?
It's going very well, thank you. I really appreciate being on your show, and I'm very honored. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh man, the honors. Oh man, we can't believe
it. No. I'm just a normal guy.
That's awesome, man.
I love the Monster 911s. Me and Lee have been binge watching them for a few days now, and man, I gotta say, I love how you cover all things cryptids and anything really unknown, and it's been awesome. I've been enjoying them.
The last one was I held on that for about 3 years. I promised him 3 years before I'd let it out, just because of the line of work that he did, but. We can get into it here after a bit, but that was that last War with Dogman. That was the show that I learned a lot more, and that made sense to what me and the guys were seeing more. So it just told me that they're far more advanced than what I thought in their intellect and awareness. But yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry. Just that was a crazy show, amazing guest, and I was just very privileged to have that gentleman on.
What I like about your show, Lance, is the you no judgment. You don't have any judgment of what these people have seen. You don't no ridicule, and that's what we're trying to do on our show as well. Because these people have been through some traumatic things that, it's no joke. When you've seen these things, you can't unsee them. I always say that on our show because I've seen things in the woods over the, 30-plus years that I've been deer hunter and a hunter. And I can tell you that stuff's real out there, and I know it. And I don't care who tries to say that it doesn't exist or whatever, but because it's there. It exists.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing that my brothers and I, at least we had each other when we were together. Now, we each had separate encounters throughout our lives, but we've had plenty between us together. And so I could bounce things off of Bill or Lane, and we were like, did you see what I just saw? Did you hear what I just heard? And, Dave always says just what you said, you can't unsee what you saw. And, Wiley is also, Wiley Dave, that is, he's one to always say, I'm not going to call the person a liar because I wasn't there. Who am I to call that person a liar?
Absolutely.
When I wasn't there? The best thing we can do is listen to what the person said. And I get into a lot of the, I'm writing a book right now that is, and the entire show really, I know they're entertaining, of course, and a lot of people listen to them, but really the show is meant and geared toward to help those that have seen something that not everybody has a frightening or horrific encounter. We know that, but there are a few that have. And, again, what is horrific or terrifying to one may not be to another. Not all common sense is common. So that's kind of where I come from, is from a show that I try to put my own biases, which is really hard for all of us, aside. Try to come from a student standpoint rather than a master, because no one's really mastered these creatures, their habits, tendencies, and characteristics. So, I just want to remain a student for life in this genre, in this community. And I think if we have that mindset, you can keep learning and learning and build on what you already know in the knowledge base. And if you're willing to listen to really what people have to say without judgment.
Yes, that's just an awesome take on that. Can you tell us your first experience that you had with these creatures?
Yes. Are you talking about the dogman creature?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah. So there was a place out in western Oklahoma that Wiley Dave and had his first encounter, and he was on a couple shows. I think he was on VIX, and I think that's the only show. He may have been on another one, but I think that one too, maybe Wes's. But we were fortunate that I just called him out of the blue when I found out he was in Tulsa, and so he did a show with us. And from that point on, we became good friends. And so he is a predator caller, professional predator caller, and gun enthusiast. He knows firearms, ballistics inside and out. I learned quite a bit from him. I thought I knew about firearms until I met Wiley. And then, of course, my brother Lane knows a lot too. So anyway, we went out to western Oklahoma where Wiley had had his encounter. I believe it was in 2013. And so we went out there and we were in that location, not the exact same spot that he had his encounter at that time, but we were at a location close by. And we do a lot of glassing out there, which means you just have binoculars and you're looking long distances, because western Oklahoma is entirely different than green country or eastern Oklahoma, where I'm at right now, northeast Oklahoma. And so there's a lot of, it looks entirely flat, but there's actually a lot of undulating hills out there with a lot of deep ravines. You don't really see that from the top ground, but if you look at the topography, you have some deep, deep ravines out there that you can't see, and there's a lot of things that go bump in the night in those ravines. And so anyway, we were on this knoll, and typically like how we would hunt coyotes, and it was about this time of the day, the way the sun's setting, and we were out glassing at about 250 yards, and I spotted something moving along the tree line. The tree lines out there are very spotted. A lot of the farmers don't mess with the trees because they're in these deep ravines, so they don't even worry about taking them down or plowing them out. And so I spotted something, and Wiley saw it before I did, and he said, "There you go." And I said, "Is that just coyotes or what?" He goes, "They're too big to be coyotes. I can see it with the naked eye right here. Go ahead and glass them up." So we saw 4 of them. One was sitting on its haunches, just looking, and it's kind of hard to describe the moment when you see something that's so large on a naked eye at 250 yards. It saw the one that was black saw us. There was like 2 calicos and a little bit lighter gray that were just kind of moving around, walking around on all fours. The black one, it had the golden eyes that everybody, the amber eyes, and it's kind of how you have a dog to sit, and it was just looking right directly at us, beeline. Nothing advanced toward us. We were just said, "Hey, we're just going to hold right here. If they start coming, I don't want to go crazy. I just want to film." And so I didn't expect to see anything that soon. We just sat down. It was about this time of the evening, like I said. We just sat down, and we're just sitting there glassing, looking around. We're just kind of, this goes to prove that when you get set down, set your gear up immediately or have it going. I didn't get a chance to set anything up, and I wanted to, because I was going to get my tripod out and everything. And so I no sooner just sat down, and Wiley said, "Look at that tree line over there. Look, look, look." And then you just can see that, the average size of coyotes at different yardage. This one they're too big.
Yeah.
They're too big. And so Wiley had his coyote gun, which has a mil-dot reticle scope on it, which you can get the width and the height, the amplitude, distance. And that one that was sitting down, estimated around 6 foot tall, just sitting down, looking. And it was more narrow at the shoulders.
Wow.
than you hear other stories, but I think he estimates somewhere around 2.5 to 3 feet wide. You hear estimates. I did one interview with a guy just outside of Tulsa, the east side, that was on the Creek Turnpike, and it was bent over a deer. And I did the narration of that one, and he estimated around 4 to 4.5 feet across the shoulders. And he was extremely close. He was like 15, 20 yards away, and he was in his Baja Jeep. And he said, I turned all my lights on and I saw that one, Lance. And so, but that was my first time of really seeing one of these, fortunately at a distance. But I have to admit, a part of me wanted to have a little bit closer look-see, but because the binoculars we were using, I was able to see just the immense size of these creatures. They almost don't seem real because of how large they are. So if you were to take the average size, say wolf, say a male timber wolf, Canadian timber wolf, and you maybe 120, 150 pounds, and get that up there around 5 times the size, that's what we're talking about.
Lord have mercy. That's huge. That is
It's very
huge.
And they're very smart. I could see the black one must have been the alpha. He wasn't moving. He was like a statue. He was just looking right at us, and then he would glance over every occasionally, and the others were just mealing around. And so we watched and watched. I didn't see them go on. They did not leave on 2 legs. They left on all 4s, but they weren't in a big hurry. They turned back. It had been to the west. They turned back to the west, and then just kind of lost track down in that ravine. And so, again, those ravines out there, like many states, again, like Kansas looks flat, right?
Right.
But when you start looking at the topography and you start walking the land, or you start driving out there on a farmer's pasture that allows you to, you've got some deep old rocky caves and canyons and ravines out there.
Wow. When you guys first got there, was your buddy, was he was predator calling? He started hitting the calls? Well, what was he calling for?
We did prior to that. We had been prior to that all day. We did that morning, and then we talked to some folks out there about some sightings they had through the day. We kind of took a break, had some lunch, and then we picked back up around 3 o'clock because Wiley said it's about time to go out and start set up our stand. A stand to him is not like, so when a deer hunter says, I'm going to get my stand, your imagery is thinking you got something like a hang-on stand, a ladder stand, something like that, or a tripod stand. Wiley, when a predator caller, a stand is just a favorite place they go, and they'll sit on a knoll. So the sun's setting to the west here, so I would get advantage. Number one, you want to make sure that you're scent. A lot of people don't talk about scent, but
that's right.
These areas where he goes, he'll say, okay, that area is not going to be good, and that area is not going to be good, so we'll stay away. Let's go to these stands. And a stand is just a sitting place that we blend in to the backdrop. Our camo blends into the sage, which is about head high. We have a little tripod kind of stool we get on, and then we have a bipod that Wiley has made. And our firearms, Wiley made, he's got a friend that's a gunsmith, and he made my gun and his gun. I mean, it's out. I mean, it's shooting about like 4,000 feet a second.
Wow.
It's
that's screaming. That's screaming.
It is. You don't have to adjust too much for windage. I mean, it's just crosshairs on, they're down. So, but we hadn't been there. Literally down, kind of got slow. You're still looking around. When you're sitting down, when you go out there, you're still looking around, just like if you're in a deer stand. You know, you're looking, you're trying not to cause a lot of racket. And no sooner had I got comfortable and I was getting ready to get in my bag, and then Wiley goes, stop moving. I said, what? He said, look out there right in front of you about 250 yards. And Wiley's that kind of guy. He knows yardage down to within 3 yards. The guy is really, really good, has extremely good eyesight. I'm blown away. And I couldn't see it. I'm looking, I said, where? And he goes, stop moving and you'll see them walking. And then so we had been maybe 40 seconds, 30 seconds sitting down.
So it happens quick sometimes, doesn't it?
It does. And this is why I've spoken about several times that, a lot of people say, well, how come you didn't get this? And how come you didn't get, and those are fair questions when it comes to video or audio or pictures. The ultimate would be a high def picture. That's still what anyone wants as an investigator, but we're not journalists. Journalists have an instinct of grabbing, they wear it. That's why journalists have their there are HD cameras around them, and they're running their video, but not everybody that's instinctive yet. You know, I mean, a lot of us, we go to our day jobs, and we're parents, and and we've got cattle, livestock to feed, and then we have to get in this zone, this mode. I live near a train track, so it's going to get loud here in a second.
Oh, I understand that. I understand.
So anyway, a lot of people will say, "Yeah, you didn't see anything." Well, it's just sometimes it's a lot of luck. It's kind of like finding a good print. You got to be at the right place, the right time. But in cases like this, it's a catch-22, because I don't really advocate people to just go out and do a little bit of homework before you go out and want to see these creatures, because most of the people, like we know that when we interview, they have some pretty lifelong issues regarding psychological aspects. They can't sleep. It may be a lot of high stress and some levels of anxiety. At its worst, at its pinnacle, it can develop into a post-traumatic stress disorder, which is a lot more advanced.
This Wiley guy that you were hunting with, how many years did you say he's hunted? Has he hunted for quite a few years?
I would say he's predator hunted probably 40 years.
Can he, I know this is going to sound weird when I say this, but can he sense them when they're around? Because I've hunted enough now that I'll be looking 30 minutes before anything shows up in the direction that they're coming. It's like a sixth sense. Like you can feel them coming.
We've not talked about that too much. You would think we had. I guess we've spoken about a lot about his we've talked about his encounter he had in 2003 over and over and over and over. At least I have brought it up many times. But the one thing, and I had this last night with an interview, the gentleman, he said, "Why do some people have more encounters than others?" And it was a fair question. I just don't know if I answered it very well. But what I said was that, and Wiley is one of these people, as well as my brother Lane. If someone's going to see something, and it's going to be a brother, I would say it's probably going to be Lane. Wiley, every time we go out with Wiley, we always see something, it seems like. Now, when I say something, I don't always scripted creature have with him, but I'm going to say we'll see all kinds of wildlife, more so than normal other times. We've also been with him where we've seen a lot of unidentified aerial phenomena. Wiley's had some. He had a very close encounter when he was with a friend out there in that same area too, that I've not done the interview yet on that one. I kind of want to save it, but because we want to go out there and I want to recreate what he saw. But it was literally 15, 20 feet from the truck.
Lord have mercy. That's close. I'd like to. I want to hear that one when that episode comes out. I'm definitely there.
Yeah, I had to ask him over and over. You saw what? And it did what? I'll just say this: it really freaked his buddy out. He had some issues post event, and and I don't blame people at all. Heaven forbid that. It's just something that is. I say it kind of silly, but it's not supposed to exist, but we know they exist.
Yeah.
When it happens to you, it's a whole different event, because you're no one's planning on seeing these things, whether it's a UFO, whether it's a cryptid. And so you don't, unfortunately, get to pick the time, the day, how many there are. It just happens.
I had a sighting here at the house. I watched a UFO for an hour and 45 minutes, and it made the hair stand up on the back of my neck. And I didn't call the Air Force or didn't call any authorities because I figured they already knew it was there anyway, and maybe they were part of it. So I didn't do that. But I got a bunch of pictures of it.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's what you can do. Now, not getting too far off topic, but still staying on it a little bit. I mean, if you look at some of the work of Stephen Greer, Dr. Greer, he's got the C5 guidelines. Of how to call them in.
Yeah.
And those are very intriguing, and I think he's right on spot. I think he's right on spot with what he says, and I don't know if you guys, I'm a little strange because I don't watch a lot of television, but after hours, my brother Bill and he'll look up government release documents
Mm-hmm.
that thousands and thousands are released every year.
Like the Black
Now,
Vault type stuff.
yes, and a lot of them are, blacked out through things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But you get the gist of the body of the information, if not a title to the project, these secret projects that are released 25, 35, 50 years plus.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of what Dr. Stephen Greer is talking about now coincides with what documents are released. Now, they're not in any particular order when you get on these government sites, and you can bet when you get on the government sites, they're watching you
Absolutely.
and what
Absolutely.
you're looking at.
Yes,
And
sir.
so, but they do coincide. I'll just say that. Very, very fascinating information.
Absolutely. I think there's a tie with that and these creatures. I don't know what the tie exactly is, but I think there is a connection there.
I do agree.
Yes.
I do agree. I just I'm like you guys. There's a lot of theories, and I'm open to all of them because again, who am I?
Me too.
I'm just I'm learning like everybody else and listening to every interview intently that I can, because there might be one piece of information that I'm like, that's the connection. That's possibly it right there. So, but anyway, that's yeah. I agree. I totally agree.
One of the encounters that I heard on your show was the guy from Ohio that kind of struck home with me about, man, that guy was really pitiful. He needed somebody to talk to, and I'm glad you took him on and talked to him about it. That's scary that those people come and tell you what you have seen and what you haven't seen, and the capabilities that these people have to ruin your life it's unbelievable, and that's a shame. That's a shame.
Yes, it is. That interview did a couple things for me. I knew these creatures were. I mean, there was no doubt. There was no doubt in my mind about the realness of these creatures. Prior to that show, I was fortunate at the right place at the right time that our show was growing. That's when we were Cryptid Brothers.
Mm-hmm.
And a police officer called him out in the hall with his cousin in the hospital and said, I think you need to call these guys. And the number that he gave him was our toll-free number. And it had just happened 3 days prior. So these guys, these dark agents, if you will, or the MIBs, they basically had already made contact with them, but not too hard yet. They weren't pushing too hard. So the cousin that I spoke to was still in a state of obvious shock. And you can tell that. This is one of the only episodes that I left the toll-free message prior. I let it play prior to the show because you could literally hear the trauma, the emotional franticness, if you will, in his voice and his tonality. And you could just tell this guy saw something happened. And that's the way I felt when I instantly heard it. So I wasted no time to get in touch with him. And from that event, we talked every night at a certain time for hours. I made contact with him for like 2 weeks straight. And sometimes it was he just wanted to make sure that I was there. I was kind of like his lifeline, if you will, which sounds kind of crazy, but it's not.
Not really.
It's not when you have an experience like this, because in the writing right now, I'm getting into a little bit more in depth, and this is just me, but in researching a lot of the post-traumatic stress disorders that are out there, we know that post-traumatic stress can occur from very emotional high events, high impactful psychological events. And, most notably is our men and women that come overseas in times of war. We know that. But you can also have it from divorce situations, losing a loved one, a child, a spouse through disease or a severe accident. So we know that as well. But I want to classify these post-traumatic, instead of stress disorder, I almost want to reclassify book writing mode right now. I want to reclassify like post-traumatic cryptid disorder or creature disorder, PTCD. And so just because when you go overseas and you have these events, you know another bad human is trying to shoot at you with guns, artillery, something. Unfortunate accidents I spoke of just now about divorce and losing a loved one, and that, you know, things happen around us in our environment that are unfortunate and to good people. But when these creatures come out for the first time and you learn in fractions of a second, not only is this creature real, but it actually can be aggressive and hurt you. This is something that just out of the blue, you realized in an ignosecond that monsters do exist. I wasn't prepared. I was minding my own business. I don't know what's going on. And so your mind's not catching up. And this is where someone just freezes. And they can have firearms. They can have a bolero of ammo and 2 sidearms, and they still don't remember that they've got this stuff on. So you hear about that a lot, and it's easy to be an armchair listener, kind of like an armchair quarterback, right? You know, what did he do that for? And he should have made that pass.
Yeah.
We can do the same thing with shows. Like, why didn't he do this and do that? Well, I want to tell you, based on what these 2 cousins experience, any man, and I tell you what, I don't care how big a feller you are, you're going to be frightened. And so it's okay to be afraid. You just have to try, and it's different to know something rather than not to know something. These guys didn't know anything that these creatures exist. Now, when we go out, I know they exist already. Now, can I totally prepare what's going to happen? And, it's going to come out here. It's going to do this. It's going to, of course not. Of course not. But it took them so far off guard that I was, I feel very blessed and honored that I got to talk to this gentleman. We became good friends. We still are very good friends. And I spent a lot of time with him. But from that incident, he was able to have trust in me, and that I would call him. He was waiting by the phone when I called. And, but from that incident, I learned a lot, and I started writing a lot of things down. And I was telling him what's going to happen as they occurred. And he said, "How do you know this?" I said, "Because I've interviewed so many people, and I know how these MIB people, I know how they think now, and what they're looking for and what they're going to do. Not everything, obviously, but a lot of what you want to stay away from. This is what they're doing right now. You can't get back in that road. It's going to be guarded. I'm telling you." And it was. And so I learned a lot. I was fortunate that kind of got us in the spotlight. I hate to use someone else's tragedy. I learned a lot. I remained a student. I still am, like I said, but we became very, very good friends. We still are. And the one thing that I've learned with these folks that have a lot of PTSD or PTCD is that I don't like to do one and done on my calls. Even though I may have one show with a person, I'm actually calling them back, seeing how they're doing. They need that touch base. All the literature that's out present, whether it's at a collegiate level or postgraduate level, is always saying, I mean, why do people go to these addiction classes? Why do they have these ongoing association groups? It's because you have to keep retraining your brain that you're not there at that moment. You don't need that. You don't need this. You need to be with like-minded people. Everything is going to be okay. So that's why I call continuously. That makes me a little bit different, but I like to study a lot afterwards too and call these people back.
That's good, man. That's great. And thank God he had you to talk to, man, because who else are you going to talk to about stuff like that? I mean, you can't even talk to your own family about stuff like that. They run you down and make fun of you. And like you were saying, when you have these experiences, like even like when I had mine, I had a gun with me, but I wasn't even thinking about grabbing it or touching it. I was just looking at what was in front of me, and it was within 30 yards of me. And what my brain was saying to myself was, "Are you really seeing this? Are you really seeing this right now? What is this? You know,
Mm-hmm.
you can't wrap your mind around it."
That's it. Your brain, and that's natural.
Yes,
That's natural.
and
The mind is inquisitive.
I didn't even think about my weapon. I didn't even think about my gun on the tree or anything.
And it's the same thing with cameras. You can have it on your shoulder, your GoPro mounted. You can have it on your chest mount, on your head mount, up here.
Mm-hmm.
And, unless you've got a remote, sometimes they're voice activated. But you would be surprised, or you guys wouldn't, but you just don't turn it on because you're like, I'm seeing this right now, and your just mind is not clicking what you want to do. It's just fixated on this image that you're looking at. And, the other thing that I tell people is that, when you see one, just about bet there's another one around, or if not more. You just don't see them. And that's really with his cousin. There were others on that island. And getting what you just said, he lost his marriage, he lost his job, he lost friends in the community. Family wouldn't speak to him. He told his pastor, he just said, you've had a nervous breakdown, you just need a lot of rest. Nobody would believe him. And I told him this. I said, what happened to you was so real, emotional, impactful, that you trying to tell them everything that happened is like trying to force feed them an elephant on a spoon.
That makes sense.
It's not going to work. It's just not going to work. And he went through this quick period. He says, I need a gun. So he went and bought a gun immediately. And his wife was upset. And his boss fired him after 15 years.
Oh, man.
And he asked the boss, and based on what the boss said, somebody had spoken to him. And it wasn't, it was these agents. And that's what they can do. His bank account was frozen. His savings account was frozen. His wife, they couldn't pay the mortgage. He couldn't pay truck bills, couldn't get groceries. She didn't understand what was going on. He was trying to tell her over and over. And she just wasn't
processing.
Gelling. And I don't blame the person. When you're not there, it's hard to grasp. You've got to, when you tell a story, you want the person, first off, to believe you, because if you believe you, that's the first barrier. Now I can openly share with you what I'm going to tell you, and I don't have to reserve anything. Mm-hmm. And that's what I tell people, is that when you talk to someone, it's nice to talk to someone that's had experiences, because you don't have to convince me.
Right.
I just want to know what happened. I want to know the context of what happened.
Mm-hmm. That's amazing. You've got a very good grasp on this stuff, Lance. You're a good study of this stuff. I just am blown away. Are you in the medical field, or are you?
I was retired 24 years. I retired last year. It took me a year to retire. I was kind of on the fence about it. When it's part of you for a long time. I was a chiropractor for 24 years. I had a clinic in Western Oklahoma. I saw a lot of country folks, and then I had a nice clinic in Tulsa. And so I've been privileged to treat thousands of people, interviewed, for ailments. You have to be a good listener. You have to be diagnosing while they're talking. What's my differential diagnoses? What's going on? What do I think's going on? And then as they're talking, and first of all, you let if someone's describing an ailment to you or a condition, step one is just be quiet, shut your mouth and listen. Mm-hmm. Step two is when they get through, you start asking questions. A lot of it's going to be subjective, what they're telling you. Then you can get to objective findings, what you're seeing through your tests, your orthopedic tests and things. So I look at I want the person, because I grew up in the sandhills of Oklahoma, my brothers and I, and, my parents, we moved to a little bit larger towns. And so we all, got an education and we came back, but I love the country, and that's why I'm back in the country. But I used a little bit of my medical questioning and reasoning to listen to these folks. I care about people. I care about their safety, their health, and I will do whatever it takes to make sure that I can, put my head down on my pillow at night and sleep well, knowing that I did my best and gave my all. And I enjoy it. So going from healthcare to this, in many ways, even though it's a very odd transition to some people, to me, it's kind of like I'm still in that pursuit of helping people. So it's not really changed.
I'm also working healthcare. That's why I'm not anonymous on here. I've worked in healthcare for 19 years, but and that's what I want to do. I want to help people too as well.
Yeah.
And I've been in a lot of traumatic situations where there's been a lot of traumas and stuff because I work in surgery. But I don't. At the time that I had my encounters, I hadn't went through all that yet. So, but I think that kind of traumatizes you to an extent when you have these encounters. But you don't really realize it at the time, if that makes sense. Because
right.
you're always thinking about it, like and to this day I'll go and look outside at night looking for those eyes. I want to see them again. I want to know what that was that I saw.
No, I mean that's a very good point. Is that by the time last night I did an interview till 1 a.m. I do a lot of interviews that take 2 and 3 hours, and sometimes 4. My longest interview was 4.5 hours. I stay on until I just can't stay on any longer because I go to work. I get up at 5. I still work right now for some friends, and I enjoy what I do. I get to work with my wife. But I'll say this, when you go through interviews, I have to kind of work myself back down because my mind's racing and I have to go to bed immediately right after that. So I'm up still about another hour just decompressing.
Winding down.
I'm winding down. So I'm not fearful of what I heard. I try to refine it, kind of debrief myself. What did I learn from this interview? How could I apply what I heard to help other people? How could I put this in a way that I could help someone understand how to apply this and use it for safety means or just educating them in general. So I have to go through a debriefing period when, and no one tells you this, you just kind of learn it. And no different than really the line of work you're in. And when I was a chiropractor, I did a lot of IV nutrient medicine. I did a lot of IVs on sick people. A lot of injectable nutrients. So there's a lot of stress there. It's not surgery by no means, but it's still. I always would debrief myself and kind of wind down when I get home because you're just in that mode. And I still do that to this day, and that allows me to sleep. But I don't worry when I go out at night. Well, I walk up and down my drive when it's dark, and I do that for a number of reasons. Believe it or not, I think I told this story. When I was a kid, I was deathly afraid of the dark. My dad used to scare the living bejeebies out of my brothers and I, but I'm the oldest of the brothers. And so I was so terrified that I would turn every light on in the house. And I got over that fear on my own. I did it out in the woods one night, and it was just pitch black. I didn't have a flashlight, and I just started walking. And then I started doing some silly stuff, which I do not recommend, but we lived in state parks, and I would actually go running at night into the woods, and I would run for miles up and down canyons, and I would just put my hands in front, and I would go down canyons and come out, and I would run on these flat mesa tops at night. I tried to do it on a moonlit night, but I got over my fear. And but I do this intentionally, going up and down my drive at night and walking around without a light, to put myself in a position as to I know that, and I know this is going to sound strange to some people, but for me it's not. I know the Lord's with me, and I know I'm well protected. Now I'm no dummy. I pack heat, Like we always tell people, I never leave home without it. But that's just what I do. I just want to remind myself again why I do what I do. The night is beautiful. There's a lot of beautiful creatures that come out at night, indigenous creatures that come out. But I'm no dummy. I still have my firearm with me, and I just listen. It allows me to amplify my senses a little bit more. But again, I don't recommend that, but that's just, I'm sharing just a personal thing that I do.
I think David had a question for you, Lance.
Yeah,
go ahead. Go ahead, David.
Well, I have to know, as a big fan already in all the episodes, I have to know, out of all the episodes that you've heard and what you've heard on your episode, which one sticks out to you the most and why?
Oh, great question. Great question. Well, first off, thank you so much. I really appreciate you listening and tuning in. I'm just so blessed and honored that a lot of people listen to the shows because I want them to be more of an educational tool. But
you're welcome, man. It's awesome.
I would say some of the ones that stick out, and you haven't. I've got new shows that I've been making this year that's not even out yet. I've been going out on the weekends and doing some filming. So you guys are gonna.
Fantastic.
You're gonna. It's interesting. So I won't talk about those yet.
That's okay.
But I'll say of the ones that you guys have heard and know about, I would say, well, obviously, episode 24, the Ohio Bigfoot attack and Fed cover up. That was a big one that instantly sticks in my mind. Another one that sticks in my mind, believe it or not, is running right now. The Kansas. It's one of the Kansas Bigfoot encounter stories with the mother. And
was that son. The part? Not to cut you off. Was that the part 1, 2, and 3 that you did recently?
Yes.
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 Yo, man, I'm on part 3 right now, and I can't wait to listen to the rest tonight.
It stuck out in my mind. Well, I'll back up here. The cousin stuck out because that whole show or that whole encounter story, it almost resonates like you can make an entire movie out of it because it's got a lot of parts, a lot of people, things happening that just, it involves the government, it involves military, it involves local law enforcement, local radio station, local hospital, nurses, doctors, friends, attorney. And I'm working on that possibly for the future. To make a movie about that. So I want to do it right and I want to do it well, but I already have permission. So that sticks out because of that. The next thing was the mother, the Kansas, because it was such a drastic event change, a mother and a son going out for a son that she just got a truck for, 16. She was very happy for him. Let's go take a drive. Midday, which again occurred like with the cousins, occurred with this mother and son out in the middle of Kansas, of all places, I mean,
the plains.
So the events that transpired, how the mother kept her cool, and there was more than one out there. They were eating corn, and one was by the entrance exit, and how they got in, how they was chased. I mean, that was one that sticks out. Another event that sticks out is from a friend of mine that back when I was learning to do interviews a little bit better, but I was still kind of green at it, was a gentleman, a good friend of mine in Florida. I got two buddies, friends. One is in Central Florida and the other was close to Central Florida. One was Richard, who went to help a friend he thought was a homeless guy stealing trash out of a Sarasota State Park. And he saw one of these creatures. He got approached by an MIB, had the SIM card removed. Richard was also one that went to his son's property on a palm farm. And so I don't know if you've heard that one. Richard out of Florida, super nice guy, very aggressive and wanting to know. He was really pissed about his SIM card being taken.
Is that the one where they hit his dog with some kind of radar thing and it made him sick? And it wasn't that guy's encounter close to where the woman had killed the Bigfoot?
No, that one. Okay, so that's the other friend of mine that lives more in central Florida.
Mm-hmm.
I'll just say that it is near Ocala.
Okay.
And so on that particular, so anyway, Richard, that sticks out just because Richard was really good about relaying information back to me, and he's just one of those guys, don't push me too much because I'm going to come back at you kind of guy.
Mm-hmm.
And I appreciate that gumption and that grit he had. So that sticks out. The one with the lady, the mother shooting that was another one because it was a mother. She took it upon her own to fire her own fire. Children that were first got through going to the grocery store, and she did what any parent would do and anybody would do. There is a giant monster looking in the windows. I'm sure it was. She shot it, and her shot was lethal, and it went down. And basically, my buddy that lives in the neighborhood kind of relayed all this information to me, play by play, as it was occurring that evening and the following day. We had a mother shoots a Bigfoot. The kids are left at the trailer. One is old enough to watch the others. My buddy goes over, invites him to his place. Him and his wife feed the kids. They stay the night there. He goes back in the dark, circles around, and sees the Florida game wardens, 3 of them.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'll just say they were at least in a game warden truck. Whether there were 3 game wardens or not sure. But he saw them pick up a massive body, load it in the truck, and put some type of tarpaulin over it, and close the tailgate, and push body up in there, up in the truck. The next day, there was these agents. They were behind her trailer. One, they were gloved up, and they had a rake, and they were raking the ground with gloves. And he did a U-E back there because you could go to the end of the block and circle in around and come back. And they stared at him. They just stopped, and he just acted like he was minding his own business, and just went on to town. He was followed by the local law enforcement, followed by these guys, had his door knocked on twice by 2 different sets of these guys. He sent me some audio of some things going on. It was intercepted. He gets a package. I never got it. About 5 months or 6 months later, he gets a manila envelope in his mailbox. No stamp. It had his name on it. And it said Kansas City. That was it. He opens it up. It's his SIM card, and it's erased.
Oh, man.
So that one was strange because it involved a mother protecting. She knew what she was doing. I suspect she's had firearm training, and she knew how to use that pistol. Now, my opinion is that you don't necessarily need the biggest and baddest firearm to do the trick. Now, you can't take a pea shooter, but I'm worried about the guy that's used a firearm 10,000 times rather than a guy that's got 10,000 firearms.
There you go.
And because when you know how to use that firearm inside and out, you know exactly where to put the crosshairs.
Yep.
And so I believe that in this situation, it just makes sense. That's a possibility. So those are some ones that just stick out in my mind, just right off the top of my head. And I've got others. It's really hard to place. Each one is different, but those are the ones from the past. And then, of course, recently this War with the Dog Man. That was another one. Again, I told him I wouldn't talk about it for 3 years, and but that's another one where I learned quite a bit.
I had one more I wanted to run by you that I'm curious about. You're from Oklahoma, right?
Yes, sir.
A lot of what I hear about is mostly Sasquatch activity, but I've also, you can't rule out Dogman. Do you think there's more Sasquatch than Dogman, or is it about the same, in your opinion? What do you think?
Oh, man, I tell you what.
And also, if you can, what do you think the Dogman creature is?
Well, I lost that audio on the very last of it. Can you repeat that again?
I was just gonna there at the end, if you could, what do you think the Dogman creature is?
Well,
in a nutshell, with everything going on, all the theories, if you had to put it all out there on the table.
I would say that the answer to your first question, that's going to be a tough one.
I think it's pretty much like Texas. It's probably even.
I would say if I was just going to guess, there's been some estimates. Wally and I sit down, and my brother Bill, we sit down, we did some mathematical formulas on the number of sightings. And here's the thing. These shows only give us the sightings that are reported. Mm-hmm. How many people have been intercepted by these government agents that we'll never know, and what kind of incredible, horrific events that have transpired we'll never know. And,
yeah.
And then how many people have seen and heard things, or things that's happened that only stays in certain circles of family and friends and communities, we'll never know. So if I was going to take a somewhat of an educated guess, but I hate to even say, but I was going to say, if I was going to take a guess, I would say Bigfoot in Oklahoma, possibly 1,500 to 2,500, maybe.
Wow.
More.
I wouldn't be surprised at all with that number. Do you know if it's
one night we started doing a little bit of a formula?
Southern Oklahoma, because I know East Texas is like a hot spot for Sasquatch. So it makes me wonder if it's like that, if that's related with Southern Oklahoma.
Of course, Texas being just a
massive... Red River, a lot of Red River encounters, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, the dogmen and the... like the big thicket area there in Texas, that could be like a battleground between the dogmen and the Bigfoot competing for a food source. If that's a thick area and, there's supposed to be a lot of deer in that area, maybe they're competing for a food source. And that's why they're always, people have like encounters with grumpy creatures, or they're mean, or, more aggressive, I should say.
Yeah, I think they have encountered each other, just because the habitat that they tend to thrive in and be in naturally, they have made contact with each other. I have no doubt. As far as the number of these dogman type creatures in Oklahoma, that's a hard one. I would say I would guess roughly about the same estimates. If I was just flat out taking a guesstimate on that. As far as how these creatures came to be, I know what I'm going to say. Everybody has their opinion, and they're absolutely entitled to it. This is just Lance Hightower's opinion, and my brother's and I opinion, and Wiley's opinion, because we talk about this stuff.
No judgment.
And so I would say that I believe personally with these creatures, is there some biblical association or connotation to that? Yes. I do believe there's a biblical aspect to it, where there is, and again, for lack of a better word, I believe that, when you read Enoch and you listen to these beasts that roam the earth, the fallen angels, of course, everybody has heard from A to Z the Nephilim and the Gibor, the offspring of the Nephilim. We know that in the book of Genesis, the giants did survive the flood, if you continue reading after chapter 6. And so I believe there is that, personally for me, that association. Now, others, like a gentleman I talked to last night, we talked about portals, in that I've got some guests that have seen these creatures, and then as they're watching them, they just disappear before their eyes. Mm-hmm. And they're like, I'm telling you, I'm not on any medication. I was looking at it 75 yards and it just disappeared. And when I say disappeared, Lance, it didn't like walk off and disappear in the trees and blend in with the foliage. It like just disappeared. Mm-hmm. So yeah. Do I have an exact answer on that? No. Do I think that there are dimensions that we don't quite understand? Mm-hmm. Yes.
Absolutely.
Do I
Yep.
think that whether you want to call it portals within dimensions, do I conceive or believe those to be exist? Yes, I do. Um, it seems science fictiony. I understand from the get go. Sometimes a lot of education, the more educated we become, sometimes we become more closed minded.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have to learn to be more open minded. And if you are just a little bit, I think you'll come to realize we know very little and there's a lot out there to learn. Uh, there's people that have a good grasp on things, and I like their postulations, their theories, their so I'm still processing it myself, but
Mm-hmm.
that's from me. Now, how that biblically fits into these dimensional aspects, I don't know. But again, I didn't create the heavens and the earth.
Mm-hmm.
God did. So,
That's right.
you cannot be smarter than the creator who created you. So
Mm-hmm.
that's just, my 2 cents.
I think there's a lot of different creatures out there. I think there's things out there in the woods and areas that have yet to be discovered. And me and
Oh,
David
yeah.
was talking about it today. Like an eel, for example, can create an electric charge. And who would ever thought that a creature or a being, like a live living creature, would be able to create an electric charge? And then you have like octopus, which can go down and it can blend into the environment almost like it has a fiber optics capability, and then the chameleon can cloak itself, or mimic whatever leaf or grass that it's sitting on. And who's to say that some of these creatures don't have those abilities? Maybe all of those abilities. And
Oh yeah, there's some interviews that I've done that the gentleman that asked me earlier in an episode that it just struck me was the retired law enforcement. I think he was a detective. Uh, he was in. I want to say sometimes the interviews blend, but I think it was in. I want to say it's Pennsylvania, and he saw this creature on the side of the railroad track as he was walking home, and the features, the characteristics that he was describing was so gargoylish. So parts of it, yes, looked like a dogman creature, but it had features of it that looked emaciated. It looked very puny, but yet wired on. And it had extremely long fingers with claws, and it had two sets or two rows of teeth. And it's as he turned, he heard this creature heard him back on the railroad tracks. It turned and just gave this sinister looking grin at him. And when it did, this gentleman said its eye like it shot out beams. And he goes, I know what I'm saying, Lance. It sounds crazy, but I'm telling you, it shot a beam out, and around the beam of green light was red, encircled it. It kind
oh
of encircled it. And he said, I was so scared. I had a gun on me and I wasn't even going to use it, didn't know how to use it. I just knew I needed to get him.
wow.
Wow.
It's features that I've never heard from any other interview, but other people that lived on that mountain, I think it was some friends or brothers saw it a year previously. And when they saw it, it flew after them.
Oh wow.
And so a week or two later, they moved. And so he was told, he was talking to some neighbors or a family member, and he said, yeah, you need to talk to my nephews about what they saw. And then later he had that encounter on the railroad track, and I tell you what, it shook him up, and it still to this day is and a lot of people still suffer with a lot of those events.
Wow.
We had a question in the chat. I'd like to know this myself too. Any of your encounters? I mean, any of your shows? Was there any encounters of Gugly or Janosqua?
Say it one more time.
Any encounters that you heard on your show, episodes of Janosqua or the Gugly that you know of?
No, not yet.
Okay.
Not yet. It just depends on where the person's from.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of, There's a lot of names too that when I started the channel in 2017, I just knew, talking about Sasquatch or Bigfoot, Yeti, skunk ape. I didn't know a lot about that. There's many other names out there for other types of creatures, and a lot of it sometimes is just local names, like the Janoskwa. But there are people, Chicken Man, Wood Ape, Boogers, Wood Boogers, Tree Apes,
Woolly
Cave
boogers.
Watchers, Woolly Boogers, Tree Hiders, and it goes on, and that's why it's so hard to do research on Google, because a lot of that is only reported in small town newspapers, and the name gets printed whatever the person said they thought it was. That's like if you go to when I was in Alaska, I felt that the Kushtaka or the Kushtaka by the eastern native there, which translates into Otterman. And so they basically named a creature based on what they already knew. Well, man, it must walk like a man and look like a man, and otter, black mints to me. But that was very interesting, going there in the Kushtaka and talking to some of those folks there.
Have you had any encounters, Lance, where they talk about the eyes glowing in the dark?
Yeah.
I saw some that, a buddy of mine, he was with me, and we had, there was at least 4 or 5 of them that surrounded us at a campsite, and they had blue glowing eyes. They were electric blue, and they were almond-shaped eyes. And these things they weren't tall. These things were only like 4 feet tall, but you could see them peeking around the trees, and then they would tilt their heads back and forth like, you know how a dog's gets curious if you make a sound? These things tilted their heads back and forth. And they, one of them either tried to climb up on his van, or it stepped up inside of his van, and it shook the van while we were sitting there. But I have it was pitch black, but I could see the eyes, he tried to communicate with it. We didn't feel threatened or anything like that. But at one point, they had, like, it was almost like they were gone. They had left, and all of a sudden the hair stood up on the back of my neck, and I told him, I said, I don't know how I know this, but I said, they're standing right behind me back there. And he looked up behind me, and there was a little hill up behind me in the dark there, and he said, there's not just one there. He said, there's 3 of them. And then I slowly turned around, and I look up on top of the hill, and there's 3 sets of blue glowing eyes looking down at us. So I have no idea what they were, but they were not big. I did hear something come down out of a tree and hit the ground with a thud, like a loud thud. And I had also, before any of that had occurred or happened, I heard 2, and me and him both heard 2 things down in a ravine, like they were talking back and forth, and it was like almost like the Sierra sounds, if that makes sense to you. But it was a muffled Sierra sound. It wasn't real loud. It was like muffled, and it was talking back and forth. But this whole thing started with a hoot owl. A hoot owl making a hoot owl sound. Right. And the area where the hoot owl sound came from is where this loud thud hit the ground, and then after that is when we started seeing the eyes appear.
Wow.
So
yeah, I have had a couple of more than a couple dozen interviews where people have had the eyes glow, and there's a couple different. They don't know because the light was shining on them. But there was some where there was no light shining, and they were glowing on their own. Yeah,
this was no light. There was no light source here. Both times that I've had encounters like this, the eyes have lit up without a light source, pitch black.
Wow. Yeah, that gets into
because I know what you're talking about. Eye shine, like if you're out spotlighting or whatever, you pick up. But this was not eye shine. This was like I call it bioilluminated eyes, or self-illuminated. Yeah.
Right. Yep. Yeah. And that makes sense to me. Now, that feature is still what we're trying to understand. You could obviously say, oh well, it helps them seeing in the dark better. But there's plenty of animals, indigenous animals and creatures, predators. Bobcat, they can see in the dark. We know that owls can. And they don't have any bioluminescence, at least that I've seen at night. When I have a lot of owls, I've had owls land within 3 feet of me. Getting out of my deer stand, and it kind of startles you, but it's dark and I don't see any bioluminescence.
Absolutely.
Bioluminescence that you would see with bugs.
Right.
And so there's a kind of a famous encounter where that is mentioned. There was a story out of Oklahoma. What year did this occur? I want to say it was about 82 that occurred in a very small community with, there was a casino, and this was the main revenue generator in this small little community just north of Oklahoma City. And the back security cameras caught a very tall creature, Bigfoot, walking under these security cameras, striding across to a grease trap, opening up the grease trap, smelling, looking inside, closing the lid, and going back striding across this parking lot, looking in the window of a lot of people will take these, like senior citizens will take these buses, go play at a casino, then get back on, and they take them back somewhere.
Like a tour bus.
Tour bus, thank you. It looked in the window, then just strolled on and went into the darkness into a field. Well, the manager of the casino called a state investigator, Dave Davies. I still remember his name. I listened to that. This was before we had a podcast show, anything. And he worked as a state investigator, and he got to see the footage. And he was interviewed by someone else about what he saw. And he said that he could watch it as many times, and he saw this very tall creature, 9 to 10 feet tall. And one thing that struck him is that in between, as it was strolling from one pole to the next pole, which was quite a distance, but he was making up ground fast because of his stride. His gait cycle was huge compared to a human. That the eyes and the head had this bioluminescence glow.
That reminds me of there's a guy named Richard Allen. I think it's Richard Allen Miller or something like that. He's on Project Camelot, and he talked about getting to go to Antarctica, and he got to see a bioluminescent moss that was growing inside these caverns that are in like deep under the ice. And he talked about getting to go down where they had the Nazi bases. You've probably heard that, but he said he got to go in there. But the whole area was self-illuminated with this bioluminescent, like algae or moss or whatever. So maybe these things live deep in the earth, and maybe that's part of the, could be like a moss that gets in their hair, or maybe they eat something in their diet that is a bioluminescence, and maybe that's in their bloodstream or something, maybe causing that.
Absolutely, and that's not far-fetched to believe. It's about genetics, and it's about my eyes were opened up when my brother Bill did a breakdown of Dr. Melba Ketchum's her work, her analysis of doing the DNA, looking at mRNA and some of the DNA structures of these creatures. She had samples. Sample 1 was from Oklahoma.
Wow!
And she did it on the Dogman and the Sasquatch.
Oh wow!
And so she actually was very, very good at what she did when you look at the analysis. And we did a show on that. I think Bill did, I think it was 2 shows, maybe 3. But he basically put it in layman terms, which was really eye-opener. And he talked about she talked about the genetics and how each gene was quite mutated for size in humans. The same DNA was amplified for the Sasquatch. And then she talked a lot about the eyes and the structures and things. But we know that these creatures, I believe, we've heard that, game cameras are worthless if you're using infrared. We can't see it as humans, but these creatures can. And they have our rods and cones are such that, we need light to see. And these creatures, We believe they are tetrachromatic. They have an additional rods and cones that they can actually see different spectrums of white light, but also into the darkness, whether it's light gathering, just like a predator would be, like an owl or a bobcat.
If they have the capability to do infrasound, which would be in another frequency, another spectrum of sound, it stands to reason that they would be able to see in another spectrum of sight. That's
why not?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And when I was doing my schooling, we were made to watch a video about genetics, about DNA and DNA manipulation, and they showed us on this video that they were working on crossbreeding, or not crossbreeding, but splicing the DNA for fireflies with the DNA of tobacco plants, so that when the tobacco plants were ready to harvest, they would glow in the dark. So they would be at the prime time to harvest. So that almost shows you that maybe genetics may have been manipulated over time to cause a bioluminescent effect in the eyes.
Well, and that's true, because nature, if you have a creature that it uses its own agility and abilities to fend for itself, to gather food, to hunt, it makes sense that it's going to adapt to its surroundings very well, but also have features about it to adapt to, because of its size, adapt to the outdoors very, very well. So why not? If you're going to go all out genetically, why not have bioluminescent eyes? And again, there's probably other things. The infrasound. It's a way that you can subdue your prey, sustain some type of a sickness or some type of a psychological trance to subdue your prey, make them ill, sick, you name it. So having these abilities when you don't use any tools, you don't hear a lot of people saying, I saw it with a hammer, a stone hammer. I saw it with a bow. And I know it sounds kind of silly to say that, but really, this is a being that, and I'm saying a being. A lot of people say, well, how come there's no body, this and that? And you've heard that too. But I'm not saying that we're highly intelligent as human beings. Being what we create, we developed, we invent, our communication abilities, all those things. But here's the thing. These creatures are also very intelligent, and they have to adapt without, not that I'm aware of, they've used a lot of tools. They don't flint, they don't, at least that I'm not aware of. I've not interviewed one person that they start napping flint. That's what I meant, napping flint. Or they have tools that they made. Now, I'm not saying that they don't make stuff with their hand and mud pies and take a rock and use it to hit a deer and just kill it. I'm sure they can. I'm sure they've done it thousands and thousands of times. But I just think that they're intentful on how they hunt, as to be extremely quiet and not give away their locale.
The gait on these things, it seems like when they find tracks that they're one right after another instead of side to side, like how we walk. Yes. Do you think that's just bone structure, or that's just the way that they walk?
I think your environment will shape your structure. So I believe, you heard I remember when I was in gross anatomy, in undergraduate and graduate school, it's a structure begets function, and function begets structure. So it's in other words, it is structure. It's going to be articulating structures, condyle structures of joints, and how they move. And even going back into the Patterson Gimlin film, how they move is intentful. These creatures, they don't have manners per se. They're reactionary. They react to survive, to hunt. So they don't understand humor. They don't do things by accident, in other words. So getting back to their gait cycle, I believe that how they move in their gait cycle is intentful based on walking in the woods, walking in brush, thick brush. Their hair has purpose not only for concealment but also for protection of diseases and things, because I'm sure that they have an oil they secrete. But in addition to that, having hair actually creates a flow around brush and thorns that it allows you to move through a little bit easier. It doesn't seem logical.
Yeah.
But that hair actually acts like
almost like
a glide.
Yes.
As they go through it. So we think of hair like, it's going to get all tangled up and this and that. But the hair has a lot of purpose, but their gait cycle, their structure, bone structure, everything for a size of that creature, how they walk and how they do this internal, the hip, where we have a side to side here, they have more of a coming in, the hip rotates. So it abducts, and then that hip comes in as it adducts, and then it lands, and then as that foot comes up, this arch. Let's see, get right here. This arch comes up, so it's the foot where we toe off to the great ray of the toe, where we toe off the lateral third. So our shoes wear on the back and our toes area of our shoes, and that's where calluses are. Now I'm using my hand as an example of as a foot, but where they actually, as they go into a step, they actually, instead of toeing off like this, like we would, they come in and they go back out and go. So they come into the same step and come out of the step and move forward. So that's why there's steps. That's when you're looking at film to see if something is a hoax. Because it's kind of hard for a human to remember all that and
fake it.
And you're looking at hand length. So the arm length, where it is on the thigh, is also going to be exaggerated on these creatures. How it walks. It's really hard for a human to think of that and walk extremely fast. And the gait cycle, you can just tell the gait cycles too.
Now, have you seen the Patty footage and watched the gait on that? And could you see that swing when it,
frame
like you're
frame,
talking?
Frame by frame, yes. I went to my first conference way before we did a podcast show. I was just fascinated because of my experience as a kid. And I went to a conference in Tyler, Texas. I just seen it seemed kind of cool. So I took my son, who was 9 years old, and we went all the way down there to Tyler, Texas from Weatherford, Oklahoma. And I stayed down there, had a great time. And that was the first time there was a group there out of the Texas Research Conservancy, Bigfoot Research Conservancy. They had broken down, they had a primatologist there who had broken down frame by frame, which he showed us. And broken down, and he said, now look right here, and he blew it up. And he said, see how that hip, that socket is not, and he was able to turn it around. It was really a fascinating presentation. And I'd already come out of school, so I still had a lot of the anatomy fresh on my mind. I'm like, this is fascinating. But yes, you see that same presentation. It happens so fast in the Patterson-Gimlin film. You're looking at everything. You're looking at the facial features, but then draw down to that hip area, and you can see.
You can even make out muscle movement in every step, even from the calf muscle, calf muscle, all the way up to the back of the body, and it's like, come on, that's not a suit.
Yeah, you can see muscle striations. You can see the contraction when it happens, when you hand that impact of that lower torso makes that impact with that thigh. That it's the lateral. You got the vastus medialis, which is on the inside. Then you have the lateralis. So you can see that contraction that happens on that TFL band. So it's amazing when you do the close-ups of that. But that was the first time I saw it frame by frame. But I've seen it frame by frame since then. And so when you slow it down, you can see that gait cycle. And this is why, because of the structure, you get a inline step. You don't get a side to side.
That totally makes sense. That
So
totally makes sense.
they're very efficient. They were built for walk because they walk. What's the best way? Instead of having one foot crowding into brush, I'm trying to get in the picture here, into brush with each step. What about making it efficient and go just in a straight line? You're maximizing energy efficiency when you're moving such a big body through dense timber.
It's moving at a farther distance with less effort.
Less amount of resistance. That's
Yes.
right. Conservation of energy.
Yes. To get back to the hair that you were talking about, how it glides through the thick brush. Have you ever heard of the? I came across some information a long time ago about a study that was done about Native American trackers in Vietnam. Have you ever heard this story about the hair? About how they when they would take these trackers, like they had like an ability to where like if the enemy came in the area, they could get the men out before the enemy got there because they could sense the enemy was in the area. And that's just the abilities that these Native Americans had. And so they studied them, and what they found was that whenever they would shave their hair off, when you go through boot camp, they shave your hair off, they would lose their abilities. And so they started studying it and why they would lose their abilities. And what they found was that, this article said anyway, was that the hair follicles are connected directly to the nervous system. And they act like an antenna. And they pick up energy in the environment. And they can sense things, like how you're sitting in a restaurant, for example, and you just turn around and you look at somebody in the eye because you didn't really realize that they were looking at you, but that sixth sense knew that they were looking at you. It's almost on that level, if that makes sense. But like a deer, for instance, I know I've mentioned this on the show numerous times, but I know, for example, like if you're up in a deer stand and you aren't moving and a mussel and a deer comes in, if you make eye contact with that deer, if you make eye contact with it and you look at that deer is going to stop and look right up at you in a tree. And I've learned over time, all the years that I've hunted, that I close my eyes when they come in, when they get close. If a big buck comes in and he's coming in, I'll close my eyes for a little bit and I'll try to look through my eyes when they're closed. And I've killed some big deer doing that. Now I don't know if it was just a coincidence that happened, but it's helped me out. And I had a buddy of mine that was a sniper in Vietnam, and he told me that they had went in areas and they got so close to the enemy that he said they would be laying in the foliage or the brush, and he said that his heartbeat would be beating so loud that he would think that the enemies could hear it. But he said they were trained to not look at the enemy, do not make eye contact with the enemy. And he said they would be laying there looking at him out of their peripheral vision and not moving. And he said they would walk right on by. But he said they trained them not to look and make eye contact. And a guy that I worked with that was a CRNA told me that when he was he was up in Alaska, he went to use a bathroom out on the porch at night, and he heard something, and he flipped the light on, and there was a bear standing off on the side of the porch, and it had its paw up, and it was covering its eyes to like not put its gaze on him. And that's what he told me that bear was doing. It was concealing its eyes so that he wouldn't sense that he was that close to the bear. So I find that fascinating, the hair. And where I'm going with this is that the Bigfoot are so big and have so much hair on them, just like a deer. And if that acts like an antenna, that's part of the reason why they know what your intention is before you get there, because they can sense your energy before you get there. And I think they know your intention when you go in the woods. And I spoke to a guy that had seen 3 of these creatures, and he told me the same exact thing. And he said that if you're going in there calm and you don't have any ill intention, then they will most likely going to leave you alone. But if you go in there with bad intentions and you get in between them and their families, or you're going to be perceived as a threat with their families, that's when things are going to go very wrong. for it.
Yeah,
So
I totally agree on the intention aspect through there, and that kind of, to a minor point, but still kind of along the same lines, gets into Dr. Greer and
oh,
the
does it?
UFO.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. So you got to watch some of um, his footage, because it kind of bleeds into what we're talking about. So basically, what that says is that the physiology or the anatomy of not only how we're created, but also these creatures. There is no everything has purpose. So our hairs, just like our hair, we can sense if someone just brushes over the hair lightly. You can feel that. So I believe that, again, their anatomy, the morphology, how they're designed, how they're built. There's absolute more than one purpose. The initial could be, oh well, they're to keep warm. Well, and that would be the obvious, but there's more to it than that. So
Yes.
the definitely, you can almost have a whole show just talking about this energy, and a lot of people go now, oh, now come on, Lance, you're getting out there, but
You're
no,
getting
I'm
into the
not.
woo, getting into the woo factor.
Yeah, you're getting in the woo factor. I have a buddy that says that a lot. But it's really not. It has to do with quantum. Yeah, yeah, exactly. You get into the quantum mechanics, quantum energy. It's real. I mean, we produce electrical current. Our brain, spinal cord, nerve. It represents the nervous
Yes.
system, and so it's all around us. Things that move, things that are solid have less movement of the molecules. So it gets into this energy. It's kind of like I had a doctor one time. I bought his practice years ago, a great guy. And he shared with me when I bought the practice, he says, now we're going to talk about one thing on the end as everything transpires and all the paperwork. We'll talk about this one thing. And then I said, okay, sure. So that day came and he said, now I've got a book here. I want you to review it every day because it'll help your business. And I said, okay. And I thought it was going to be like accounting. And I looked in it and it just had names, addresses, phone number, and the last date they were in the clinic. And there was a bunch of marks on it, a tattered and torn 3-ring binder. And I'm like, okay, what's this? And he said, well, here's the thing. Every day I think about, I'll go down this list and I'll say the person's name. I'll think a good thought. I'll say a quick prayer and I'll say, if they need me, they'll call me. And then he'll draw through it and go to the next person. He'll do 10 a day. He said, guess what happens after that? The next day or within that week, that person that I thought about calls. He said, now, with that being said, have you ever thought about someone and you haven't seen them in a while, or you haven't talked to them in a while, or you just have not seen them and you bump into them? And I said, yeah, I think everybody has. He goes, what do you think about that? And I said, well, I just happenstance. He said, no. We get what we focus on. Be careful what you focus on. He said, because we're all tied together in this beautiful planet and universe. We're all tied together. So by thinking of a person, I mean, some people could say, okay, now you're getting into this woo thing, but it still revolves around and comes back around what we just talked about with these creatures, these beings, is that
Yes.
we're all tied. So if I focus my stare on someone, they'll feel it. And I know that sounds, but it's exactly what you said. You
Yes.
focus your stare, and then all of a sudden this person goes, you're staring at me, you're looking right at me. So that's a good point. So I've heard that said before. I have heard, I can't remember the conversation about the Native Americans with the hair. I have heard that. I haven't dug into that too much, but that sounds fascinating. I'd like to, I need to read up on that a little bit more.
Being a chiropractor, you focus on energy flow through the body, right? With the nervous system and, pinched nerves and stuff like that. So you're removing that interference of obstructions, disc herniations, I say that tongue in cheek because there reaches a point where I'm limited based on, what I can do for a person. But most of the time, the great majority of the time, you can't help them. But yes, that's right. You're removing that interference. I go to the chiropractors because my back will go out every now and then, and it's stress related. But I've mentioned that at the hospital where I work about going to the chiropractor, and it's almost like they look down upon chiropractors. But to me, they've done wonders for me. And it's like they don't believe in it, and I know the chiropractors get a bad rap, but sometimes about versus regular doctors. But I would rather go to a chiropractor than I would a regular doctor, and I hate to say that because I work with them, but I absolutely would.
Well, it's it's very interesting. I never all my career, I never really had any interference from any local physicians. We worked
That's good.
together on a lot of cases. My one of my other brothers, he's still a physician right now, Bill,
Awesome.
and so we actually read films together. So I think it's kind of relating to what we're talking about here. In every profession, people fear what they don't understand.
Absolutely. When I went to school, I don't mean to interrupt you, but when I went to school, I was scared. Just learning in the books that I'm going to be seeing bowel and I'm going to be seeing all of these organs in the body, and you think car wreck and gore and horror and all this stuff, and I stopped one day and I don't know where I read it or I heard it, but they said people fear what they do not understand, and once you educate yourself on what you're looking at, you don't have to be afraid of it anymore. And so,
that's it. That's it. And here's the thing, too. Just to add a little bit of a caveat to that. Even very, very educated people with a mile-long list of degrees still fear what they don't understand.
yes, sir.
And a lot of them are very stubborn to say, "I don't understand." So, anytime that I would hear something like that, I would just smile and I would say, when was the last time that you had lunch with a chiropractor so you guys could talk together? So I used to invite doctors out, and we would have lunch, and we would just share cases. And I could speak the same lingo. I could turn, reports. I could read MRIs, CT scans, any kind of plain film radiography. I had a lot of reports to do all the time. So it really is not a matter of who's more important than who. Really, it's a matter of not everybody can do everything in healthcare. It's a matter
Absolutely.
of let's work. Who are we here for? The patient. And
Absolutely.
If one physician cannot do what they've done in their what I call bag of tricks, so to speak, and what we've been taught, then maybe someone else can, because I'm at my wit's end, and it's okay. It's not. It doesn't mean you failed. I've never had a patient over the years say I failed because I referred them.
Well, I appreciate what you do, Lance, and thank you for your service to humanity, man. I appreciate it.
You're very welcome. Thank you, guys.
A good question from our good friend Tom in North Carolina, Cryptid Paranormal Project. He wants to know. This is interesting too. I'd like to know. He said, out of the ask him the most active state based on his most recent interview encounters.
Most recent. You cut out a couple times. Say that one more time.
He said, the most active state based on his recent interview encounters.
Oh, I have kind of waffled back and forth on that. That's a great question. That was Tom asked that.
Yes, Tom.
That's a great question, Tom. I have waffled a lot, and I think when we got started initially, as you know, we were Cryptid Brothers Investigations of Oklahoma, and so I'm proud to be from Oklahoma, just like many people are proud to be from their state. And I grew up all my life in Oklahoma, just for the short time when I had to go to school and went up to Minnesota. But I came back. I'm right now filming in Oklahoma. And so I think with that being said, we tended to gravitate a lot of people from Oklahoma. So we got a lot of Oklahoma interviews. But I would say still to this day, it's really hard to say a top state, but I'm going to say here's Lance's list based on interviews. I would say Oklahoma, Florida, Ohio, Tennessee, Kentucky, Texas, those are the primary states that I get interviews from. Now, it doesn't mean that there's not a vast array and load or slew of other interviews that are calling in from all over other shows, or that's just the ones that I see based on the volume of interviews that I do. And then I do have outliers, of course. Kansas, it used to be for a while, it was kind of, the flavor state of the month, because I would have, it was just strange how I would have 6 or 7 people call my toll-free number from Kansas, and then I would get Alaska, British Columbia, Mexico, Kansas, Oklahoma, Texas, Kansas, so it kind of through the year kind of was spotty here and there, but those are just some of the top ones that I've seen or heard of and gone to some of those states.
Have you, do you know who a guy by the name of Charlie Raymond or Don Biggiefoot Neal are? Have you heard of those guys? The one is they're investigators out of Kentucky, and the reason why I mention these guys' names is because they did an interview up in northern Indiana with a guy that was a chiropractor and he was an RN for a while, and I don't know if he became a chiropractor or after he was a chiropractor. I don't know how that worked, but anyway, he saw Dogman walk by his house, and he noticed the gate and how the legs were hinged backwards. And being a chiropractor, he kind of explained how it walked, and he was like, "Did I really see that?" And he went out to look for it, and there was a crossroad on his property, and when he got out to the crossroad, it was like it had disappeared. And so he looked across the field, kind of diagonal, and the thing went down on all fours, turned around and looked at him, and then walked on off into a field. But he said the thing walked down the road, and he said it had, I think he described it as having its hands in front of it. And it walked down the road by their house in broad daylight. And I thought, these things are smart because they're trying to mimic a human being walking by. They hoping that somebody just if it catches a glimpse, it will just think it's a human walking by. And I was coyote hunting one time with my dad, and it was foggy out, and the night before, when we had been bow hunting, we heard something coming behind us, and I got turned around and had my bow ready and everything. And I see this thing coming through the woods, and I thought, man, that thing looks like it's got a head on it, like 3 feet wide, And it finally came through, and it was a coyote that had a turkey in its mouth. It had caught a turkey in the woods, and it came right underneath me, but it was so thick I couldn't get a shot. But the next morning, what really freaked us out about this was the next morning, the fog was starting to lift, and this coyote come down the field right in front of us. And the area that he went to, there was 2 fields. There was a cornfield and a bean field, and where the cornfield and the bean field met was about maybe 40 yards to my left out in the field. And there was an edge of grass that separated these field, and the grass was probably, I don't know, it may have been about 6 feet wide, and maybe, I'm going to guess, maybe 3 feet deep was how tall the grass was. Well, every evening the turkeys had a route where they would come up and down this path. Well, this coyote came right down in front of us. He went and he laid over in the grass where these turkeys would come by, and you know what he did? He started whining, and it meant trying to mimic the sound of a turkey going, "Arr, arr, 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 arr," just like that. And my dad said, when he saw that, my dad said, if you had that on film, that would be worth a lot of money. And they don't call him the trickster for nothing. They are very intelligent. Very intelligent.
They are. They've got them. I've got coyotes coming in my yard all the time. I'm right now sitting in my backyard. I'll see them come through, and they're bold. And Wiley Wiley is called Wiley after Wile E. Coyote, and he speaks coyote. I mean, literally, he knows what their sounds are, how smart they are, and he's even said, Lance, they're getting bigger and they're getting smarter.
Yes.
I would like to do a study on them and find out why. And so but to that chiropractor that was interviewed, that's that's a very common feature with the arms not down by the sides. They're up front, kind of like a
Kangaroo almost.
Kangaroo, Tyrannosaurus Rex kind of
Yes.
thing. And normally we have a gait cycle, humans, where we alternate, right foot forward, left hand forward. And that keeps our balance for us to walk centered and straight. Try walking right foot, right hand. It's kind of awkward. It's not, both hemispheres of the brain doesn't want to find that's appropriate. It's kind of hard. It's kind of like chewing gum and rubbing your belly, right?
Yeah.
So that's a very common feature too. So when you see video, if someone was trying to hoax or not, or it's the real deal, perk up when you see those hands in front or hanging
Yes.
up. So that's another feature that tends to be a very common, what I call a common thread of appearance when you see in any videos. But that reverse dog hawk, I believe that there is a double jointedness, for lack of a better non-medical descriptive here, that they can actually go upright. So they have two joints, one in a quadruped, one bipedal. But it's not natural for a canine to do that, obviously. So there has to be an advancement of the articular structures of that hip. And so of those knees too. So it's quite interesting on the development. I mean, if I ever had an opportunity to, a lot of people say, Lance, what would you do if I got one and I called you, and I said, well, I'd want to study it for a long time and put it in a cooler because I want to go through the anatomy and break the anatomy down on what I'm looking at and compare it to what I do know of other canines. How many lobes of lungs do we have? Is there one heart, two hearts? What's the size? What's the dimensions? Where's the position in the chest? What's the articulations look like? What's the vascular system look like? What's the nervous system look like? How thick is the hide on it? All those things. But that's just my nature. That's just what I enjoy to do. But that's kind of what I would do.
The gait on these things, how, like you said, like your arm movement versus your leg movement, with these things, with their hands in front of them, would the tail and the back help to balance them as they were walking?
Absolutely, whether they're walking or running. So we know that, God made animals a certain way, and they don't waste any parts when they're running and moving and walking, right? So that's the thing with whether it's your mountain lion or anything of indigenous creatures. So why not these cryptid creatures? When Wiley saw his running away on two legs about 250 yards, it cleared in about 7 seconds. He said that back tail was stiff like a rudder. It stuck out like a 2x4. It did not bend. It wasn't flared up. It was just... It did not move, and very little head bobbing was happening. It was just boom. It was just bounding. It wasn't like a human like this. This was just taking these huge 40, 50 foot, maybe even 60 foot strides. And it was just, he said the tail didn't look like it moved at all.
What a lot of people don't realize about you, like you just said, 40 and 50 and 60 feet strides. The size, we can't just grasp a stride like that and think that we're going to be able to do it. But the size and like you say, the bone structure and the muscles that these things have, they're big and they're moving fast. I mean, they're and that some of people that I've talked to has said that they move weird, like the Bigfoot, for example. I had one guy say that it looks like they glide when they walk.
You know what it looks like? It's what my brother Lane said when he saw his. It looks like a ghostly apparition floating on the soil.
That's what I got a description of, exactly.
He said because of the hair was so flowing, it looked like it came out of a salon. The hair was so flowing, and with humans, when our gait cycle, we do this. We kind of head bob. Well, these creatures are just one level, one level. And so it doesn't look real. And so that's what my brother Lane said. And he thought it was a horse, an Appaloosa horse, when he first saw it. That's how big it was. And it was a gray silver color. But many times people, that's a feature too, during the gate cycle, there's no head bobbing. In addition, with these dogman creatures, the same thing. Again, there's no accident how they move. Everything has purpose. Everything has conservation of energy. So this bobbing wastes a lot of energy. Have you seen people run
Yes.
out in a race like a marathon?
They really pound the ground. Like
some people are pounding the ground and they're really shoving those arms forward, and it's a struggle, and they wear out sooner.
Their joints. Yes.
Their joints. Whereas you see one runner that they're just like nice and easy. Their hand position and the balls of their feet are just hitting, and it looks like they're running so effortlessly. And it looks like they could run another 25 miles with not even breathing hard. That's how these creatures are when they move. And so that's another feature when you're looking at a video or when you see them for the first time, like, okay, I'm seeing the real deal.
Especially the lung capacity these things have. A Sasquatch, think about, they're not going to get as tired as easy. And that's a question I wanted to ask you. Have you heard, or do you know how fast that the Sasquatch or Dogman can run? Because I've heard them going as much as 50 or 60 chasing cars.
Yes, the Sasquatch. I haven't. I've had people say that they saw burst of energy that was the fastest they've ever seen. So
wow,
they've. It's, you can ask on miles per hour or kilometers per hour, and it's really hard for them to wrap, give an answer to you, because there's a lot of emotions wrapped up to that, and they're not going to know or discern really the speed in such a short time.
You're going to hit the gas. You're going to hit the gas pedal and not look at the odometer.
Right, and that's what's happened with a lot of these encounters that become aggressive, like the two cousins. He said in a blink of an eye, it went from all fours at about 25 feet to just in a split second, it had knocked his cousin into the water, fractured a rib. It did a 90-degree in front of him, and it was just a blur. And this is a large creature. So, you said with these agilities, they have supernatural abilities. In other words, they're not normal. And that's why I say that even in the book of Genesis, they talk about the giants having supernatural abilities. So as far as Dogman, if you listen to that last show with the gentleman who him and his colleagues had daily sightings of these, they saw speeds they estimated of, they didn't say sustained for long periods, but a relatively burst for a while. He said it was like 65 to 70.
Wow.
They felt.
Wow.
And so they saw these chase cars doing 60. Like it was effortlessly. It was effortless. So now how long they could sustain that, I don't know. We didn't get into that. He just saw short field distances on this. But there's been episodes of other shows where I've heard people, there's an affinity for these creatures to be around corners. And so they'll follow cars or trucks around a corner, or in straightaways, it's up hills. And these cars are doing highway speeds, which sounds just incredible. Turning around on a highway and running after the car. So we just don't know, but we know that because of the size. And if you look at, like a human that is just amazingly gifted as a runner, like Usain Bolt. He's a tall gentleman, extremely lean and strong. That's what makes him the fastest runner in the world in the 100 and 200 meter, right?
Right.
He's got size, he's got strength, he's wiry, he's lean, and he can run. And his gait cycle is huge. When he starts laying down, it is just, the other guys are running like this, and he's just boom, boom. It's kind of the same way when you have the analogy of these creatures are so tall that their stride is so long, it would take 6 of ours or 5 of ours or who knows how many to equal theirs. So when they get up to speed and they can stay there for a little bit, I mean, the miles per hour would be incredible to witness. And so that's what this guy on this last show, The War with Dogman, what he was talking about.
On the Patty footage, the bottom of the Bigfoot's foot looked like it had a pad on it, like a like almost like a dog would have a pad, if that makes sense.
Yes.
And I think that also would be the reason why they can be so stealthy. That pad is soft enough that it would when it comes in contact with the ground, that it would be quieter than say like our foot, for example. But isn't there supposed to be a hinge in the foot on the Sasquatch? Do you know about that?
Yes. Yeah. So
is that the dermal ridge that they talk about, or is that something totally different?
That's totally different.
Totally different. Okay.
Yeah. So this arch that exists, the human foot has 3 arches. We have the median arch, which everybody knows about, that has problems with, and they get the heel arches. My light went out here.
Oh, sorry.
Backup. I always have backups.
Awesome.
So the human foot has 3 arches. It has a median arch, a transverse arch, and a longitudinal arch. We know mainly the median arch that everybody has arch supports with, and it does make you walk, feel better, stand better, straighten up your spine better. But these creatures, there's very little arch. They're all have pes plants. If you notice that there's very little arch anywhere, and the weight distribution is flat. That's another feature when you look at a print. It's going to be marcated very, very distinctly where the toes are up high, and then you got the great ray, the first one, and then the toes. Now there's variance in toes. There could be 5, there could be 4, there could be 3. But then all the features, the margin of the foot is going to be in, then it's going to be flat. The dermal ridge basically is like our thumbprint. Our thumbprint is unique, and the prints on our feet are unique to us and no one else. So that's the dermal ridge, the dermis, the dermal, and the ridges, the print is that's another feature. If you can ever get lucky enough, I have a buddy, Chuck Schlab. He's got some great prints that he has sent me before that have dermal ridges, and it's not only luck to get a good print, but a lot of luck to get a print with dermal ridges on it, which he has, which is incredible. So, but this break, and this mid-tarsal break is what they call it. The tarsal bones lie in the center of the foot. So this mid-tarsal break, we can't do that as humans. We can't really do that. Try doing that and your foot will get a cramp. There's 26 bones in the human foot. We don't really know how many there are with this, with the Bigfoot, at least not yet. I'm sure there's people that know, but I haven't been privileged enough to talk to any of those people or interview. But I'm going to say that there's probably more tarsal bones in the foot, so they have that ability, that mid-tarsal break. So if you're in the woods, what is it good for? Grasping, hanging on to things a little bit more sturdy, right? Plus, you have such a large creature, you need a large surface area so you can stand upright, because the foot itself is a tripod. The heel, the ball of the and I'm using my hand again as a foot, but you've got the heel, you've got the ball of the foot, and here the great ray or the first toe, and then the 5th digit over here. So it's like a tripod, right across.
Yes.
So that's how each foot is like a tripod. So with these creatures, it's kind of no different. But they have a lot of surface area, being having pes planus, so they can distribute the weight evenly, so it makes them more quiet. They can displace that weight out. It's not just crunch, crunch, crunch. They can displace that weight, and it's soft. It's like a pillow. That makes sense.
Yes.
So now you can still feel, if you were close in a tent and you were laying on the ground, as Bill was one night in our deer camp, he felt the impact tremors.
Could
Uh,
feel him moving.
He could feel it moving around his tent.
Now, would that, like you was talking about the gate on them, how that hinges out and it moves, and then that hinge in the foot, wouldn't that be good for holding itself up in a tree, good, or climbing a tree?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely, absolutely.
There's a guy I saw some footage. It was I think the name of the show is called Paranormal Awakening or something like that. And the guy had footage of what looked like a Bigfoot on top of a telephone pole, if you can imagine, and it had a hold of a seagull, and it was beating this seagull on top of the telephone pole, but it was holding on with its feet.
I saw that.
That yeah. and what struck me about that video was that can't be somebody in a gorilla suit hanging on with their feet and beating this thing, because they'd fall off. Yeah. A human being would fall off of there.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that's kind of that was a kind of a horrific video.
Yeah.
But yeah, absolutely. So there is this primate characteristic to their feet. Most of the primates, if you were to move my thumb up here, it deviates out just a little bit with the primates and gives them more surface area for grasping, because they can take that toe of theirs as like a thumb. Mm-hmm. Okay, so what makes us different, unique as human beings with our upper torso, our appendages, is the ability to grasp with our thumb and digits. So even though they may not have a toe that projects out like the chimpanzees, they have more of a foot like us. Those that have 5 toes, is that mid-tarsal break gives them ability to stabilize a little bit easier the poundage and the weight that they have that's distributed. The foot is designed in such a way that the weight of the body goes right down the tibia and right into the talus joint, and goes out to the back of the heel and to the forward of the foot. So it goes down and out. Mm-hmm. So just think immense, something 500, 600, 700, 1,000 pounds, 1,200 pounds. That foot has to be wide, and it has to be stable, and has to endure a lot of thorns. And so I can only imagine the bottom of those feet are just thick like leather, like
yes.
Rhino hide.
Absolutely. It would be that way over years of abuse from that. Lance, have you had anybody report any encounters with beings that look like a mantis type creature? I had a report from Illinois over here. Is a coworker of mine's family member, and he was mushroom hunting, and he heard something and looked up and saw this thing. It was like a 7-8 feet tall mantis-looking creature, and it disappeared down in the ground. He said it was like a portal opened up and it shot down into the ground. So I don't know if you've heard.
One. There was I've not had an interview yet with like that. I did. Lane was telling me of an interview that he heard of a gentleman down in Louisiana, down in the bayous.
He said this area where he was at over in Illinois was swampy, and a swampy area, kind of like around the river. Yeah. So that I wonder if that has anything to do with it. But,
this was down in a swamp area, and he was with a buddy that were deer hunting, maybe. Mm-hmm. And so it was probably in the fall, and he came around a slough bend, and he saw this creature that was eating. His back was turned. He was like, what is that? And it was standing upright, and it had like pinchers, and it was doing something in the water. And he was, as he came, I don't know how far he was. I'm trying to recall what Lane was telling me. It turned around, and it had like some type of a humanoid-looking facial features, but the body was like a praying mantis. And then it was in the water, in a shallow part of the water, and then it just walked with this mantis hands, or excuse me, feet, appendages, and it got on the bank and just disappeared.
So,
and the guy was like, he was in shock, and he was calling for his buddy who was in another flat bottom boat, a John boat. He was like, get over here. So he just got there. He didn't know what was going on, and he said, "This is what I saw. I saw it right here." And of course, his friend for a while was like, "Okay." But that's the only time I've heard anything like that. Now, I have interviewed other people that has seen outlines of things that are transparent. That
Yes.
to them it looked like a outline of a
I
predator.
heard, I heard you talking. Yeah, I heard you talking about that on a episode actually the other night, where a gentleman saw an outline, like predator, and it was see-through green. I think you said, and
Oh
he could see
yes,
the he could see the outline, and it ran from a tree. And another episode that intrigued me was the one that looked like the Jeepers Creepers creature. Man, that was creepy.
yes. That show is creepy in general.
Yeah,
You
I
know,
have a picture. I have a picture, Lance, that looks like a cat man, and it almost has teeth like a Jeepers Creepers type. It has eyes like the Jeepers Creepers. They're slanted like
yes,
and has teeth. I mean, for it to be pareidolia, I mean, it's just a crazy picture. And it was just right outside my patio, and it peeking in the bushes, and I'm like, man, that is crazy. And then when I heard your Jeepers Creepers encounter, it made me think of that picture. But man, what did you think of that
well,
encounter?
here's the thing that teaches me that encounter was it is a bit creepy to know things like that are out there. But
Yes.
my brother Lane is a very instinctive. When we're in the woods, he uses a lot of instinct, and we all do. Just that's how we grew up. But Lane has scary instincts, and so Lane and I always talk. He said, "Lance, I know we talk a lot about Sasquatch and dogman creatures a lot, but here's the thing: if people only knew really what's out there, there's a lot more." And he said,
Oh yeah.
people only knew the kinds of creatures that are here on this planet, and what roams around at night in their neighborhoods, on the plains, in the grasslands, in the woods. They'd never leave their home at night if they only knew what really roams around in the alleyways and on their property. It'd freak them out too much. So that just reiterated after hearing that story about the Jeepers Creepers. And that was what the guy said. He goes, "Have you ever watched Jeepers Creepers?" And I said, "Oh yeah." He said, "That was it." He said,
Wow.
"This thing was flying around and flapping its wings like that."
Yes.
And so, I believe that also truly that are some of those possibly born here on this planet, terrestrial. Yeah, sure. But
And
in
I
these,
think Hollywood. I think, not to cut you off, Lance. I think Hollywood makes all these movies because they are real. It's funny, they have movies about all these things that people are seeing, and the best way to hide something is to put it out in the open.
absolutely, put it in plain sight, and I think that's
Exactly.
very true. I
Yeah.
thought about that too, because as soon as you see a creature, like you leave the movie theater thinking, "Oh, I'm glad that doesn't exist," but guess what? It very well could. And that's the
Hmm.
thing that's even a bit more terrifying, is that Lane says that a lot. He said, if people only knew what's out there, he goes, we haven't even seen what's really out there yet, Lance. There's a lot out there that we don't know a name for it. And a lot of these creatures, I think, are extraterrestrial, that are
Me too.
here for research purposes, if you
Yes.
will.
Yeah, there's too many. There's too many UFOs that have been spotted during cryptid encounters, and you can't
Oh,
count those. You can't count those people out. There's obviously a connection.
there is, and when you find out, you tell me, because I'm just as fascinated. I'm trying
You
to
as well.
find.
You as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm still trying to know, but there's too many, like you said, to be just a happenstance.
I saw a being one night about 1:30 in the morning at the window in our outside of the bathroom where we used to live, and I believed it was extraterrestrial. And I was face to face with it looking out the window, and it backed off the window, and I got such a good look at it that I could see the fabric rippling on the little black cloak that it had on. And Lance, I'm telling you, this thing was it was floating off the ground, and for you to be able to look into that window, you would have to be at least 7 or 8 feet tall to look in that window, and this thing was eye to eye with me looking through the window, and I couldn't see facial features on it because the face or whatever was in the black cloak, and it was weird because when it backed up off the window, it had set the motion lights off on the house, and I thought I had left the back porch light on, so I was looking out the window thinking that I'd left the light on. I thought, well, because I just came from the living room and I'd shut the lights off and I didn't see the light on out there. And I was like, well, what's going on here? So then I walked up there and looked out. But when this thing went across the yard, it went across the yard at an angle, and it got to the tree line, and it covered an area of about maybe 30 yards. And I could see it the whole way that it traveled. And it got right to the tree line, and it was just like something sucked it up in a vacuum straight up in the air, like in the blink of an eye. It just shot straight up in the air, like something just jerked it right up, straight up into the trees. But my encounter that I had, the very first one that I had, where I saw the eyes, the area where I lived at, we were seeing orange balls of light at night that I thought they were UFOs, is what I thought they were. And they would make formations of triangle patterns and different things like that. But when I saw this being back up off the window, the first thought that came to my mind was, they found me. And I don't know why I thought that, but they found me. Wow. And 2 days after this happened to me, I had sleep paralysis, and I could see out of the corner of my eyes because I woke up, but I couldn't move. And this being was standing at the side of the bed, and I couldn't move. It was the same one that I saw at the window, and I have no idea what this thing was. But that was the thought. Like, it was almost like a subliminal thought that came to my mind they found me. So
well, you've I did an interview not too long ago of a gentleman that a friend of a friend. He said that as a kid, he always wished he felt UFOs were real, and he just prayed he needed to see one of these creatures. He wanted to have an encounter.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it happened, and so he had one night he just had this feeling, and he pulled back the curtains, and there was this alien creature staring just 6 inches away.
Mm-hmm.
And it terrified him, and it was extremely tall, and he just had this feeling that it was up to no good.
Mm-hmm.
It had ill intent, and it really horrified him. And I believe he saw it again while he was outside at night, and that was kind of over the top for him. So, it gets back to be careful
mm-hmm.
what you put out there.
Absolutely.
In your thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I know this is sounds woo, but it's just that I believe that as humans, how God made us, we have abilities we don't quite understand.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe when I'm dead and gone, I'll get a chance to ask about these abilities, but
mm-hmm.
I think there's a lot we don't understand. I think if we knew what we were truly capable of, I think we would frighten us,
mm-hmm.
Honestly. So, yeah, I mean, I love talking about this. I could talk for hours.
I can too.
Going on this, but hopefully I'll have quite a bit of this in my book when it comes out, hopefully this year.
Mm-hmm. That's amazing. Do you have a name for it yet, or you're not releasing the name until you're done?
I'm not going to release the name yet.
Okay.
I do have a name, but I just want to hold on to it. We're doing the artwork
awesome.
right now.
Please let us know, Lance, when that comes out.
Oh, absolutely. I sure will. Absolutely. I'll send you guys a copy.
Oh wow, man! That is awesome, man.
The reason why I mentioned that about that alien creature is because I know these things are real. I've seen it, and like you say, you can't unsee it. And that's what's got me on this trail of trying to figure out what these things are, because I want answers. I want to know why that thing came and what it was. And it has some kind of technology, or they have some kind of abilities that's above and beyond what we have. And they're real. They're real.
They use more of this.
Yes. Yes.
Oh,
because
yeah.
we know
Yes.
when you talk to some, I would, just advocate a lot of people to, because there's definitely associations. You can learn just as much about these cryptid creatures when you're watching some of these up-to-date alien type of documentaries from people that have been doing it a lot. You start to see this blend, this meshing coming together. Like, wait a minute, that sounds like some of the same interviews that except they're talking UFOs and we're talking creatures, cryptids, but they blend in, they do mesh. And so you can learn quite a bit. And so I spend my time late sometimes just going through those documentaries and making notes. But there's just so much that we don't know. But the advancement, when you get to some people that say, there is no separation of time and space. And that gets on a whole nother topic, but basically they're using a lot more of this.
Yes.
Yes. The more I'm learning about this, I'm learning that there's more out there, and we can't stress enough on the no judgment thing. We say that all the time on our show, and it's true. It's true. I mean, we don't know what else is out there, and I don't care if someone says, I saw this big purple creature. I mean, there's just no judgment. There are things out there that just haven't been explored and seen, and the whole. We just don't know.
we don't know it all. We're never going to know it all.
We're seeing bits and pieces of it now, and it's amazing. Me, Lee, and a lot of our other friends have been recently getting just one footprint, and that is bizarre. It's like every print, I only have a few, and it's always just one. And that has happened to Lee as well. And I was wondering, it's happened to a few other buddies of ours. I was wondering, have you heard about that? Why is it always just one print? That's bizarre. You would think there would be another, a few at least. It's always just one.
I have heard of that. The only, I don't know. I would have to look at the surroundings. Because I want to go with the logical at first, is there a tree nearby that it took a leap and jumped on off one foot? I try to go.
Wow, I never thought of that.
I try to go with the obvious at first. So, we talked about this term woo. It's like when I'm in the woods, I don't, when I hear something break, I don't instantly go cryptid, creature, dogman. I'm thinking, okay, is there a coyote nearby? There's a deer, a doe. Is there a squirrel that knocked down some nuts out of the tree? I mean, it's definitely easy when you're in this genre, this community, to do that. I mean, because
absolutely,
you're on edge, and you just, because again, knowledge is key. Is it better to know that there's something out there or not? Well, I believe it's a good thing to know there's something out there. So. So my mind goes, okay, something indigenous is out here. Is it a man or is it something else? The last thing on my mind, believe it or not, is actually creature or cryptid, because I believe you're going to encounter the obvious. So I try to look for the obvious sometimes when I see one print. Is there a tree right nearby? If there's not a tree, is there something that it could clean on a fence post? Hang on a second. I got a coyote crossing in front of me. Get out. Get out. He crossed literally right here.
Wow, he's brave.
Oh yeah, they're out here.
Hey, he wanted to come check out that badass truck behind you.
Well, I like that. I like the setup with the light on the logo. That's awesome.
Well, if he gets, I appreciate that. Yeah, if he gets any closer, he's going to have some lead poisoning I've got here on my table. But I go with the obvious in the area. I look for the surroundings. But when there's no tree, there's no post, there's no deadfall log, there's no water around, There's nothing to conceal that other print. I'm thinking, and I've looked, and if you've got mud around and you've got an area of 15 to 20 feet around, and you're like, okay, he's either was taking some massive strides that I just can't find the other one, or did he just literally?
Yeah. Well, the footprint that I found, Lance, it was 4 inches, 4 inches long, and it was 4 inches long, and I made a plaster cast of it, and I took it to Crypticon, and I showed it to Cliff Brockman, and he asked me what it would take to get that print, and so I told him, I said, well, if you want it, you could have it, because he'll be able to do more with it than I will ever be able to do with it in a lifetime. So, and I think he's a very good researcher, so I gave it to him, and he made me some copies of it. But the weird thing about this print was, it was so small, it looked like a child's footprint, but there was only one of them. And the reason why I picked this area was we were mushroom hunting, me and my mom, and the water had came up in this creek, and it had flooded the area out and pushed all the leaves out. So I thought, man, we're going to get the jump on people. We're going to get in here. We're going to get these mushrooms for anybody else. And I spent 45 minutes trying to track this thing, whatever it was, and like you said, there was a big tree there, and my first thought when I looked down and I saw that footprint was, did this thing just jump up in this tree? And so I started looking up and around into the trees, but off in the distance I could hear something crashing and snapping and breaking limbs, like it was beat feet and away from me. I think it was to the north of me, it was where it was at, and north position, heading away from me. But anyway, there were no tree bins in that area. There were no structures. There was nothing. And I came back a year to the day. We looked that area over for structures. We came back a year to the day, and that where that tree was at, there was an 8-inch tree growing up in front of it, about a foot away, and something took that 8-inch tree, and it didn't snap it; it bent it. This tree was alive, and it bent this tree over and jammed the top of it into the creek bed, right within maybe 3 feet of where I found this footprint, and it made a perfect arch going into the creek. And
wow.
I always took that as a sign of those things that they like maybe move through there, or my mom, when I'd take her in there, my mom is a twin, so my mom has these psychic, you want to call them psychic abilities. And every time we would go in that area, my mom would tell me, I feel like somebody's watching us in here. I feel like I'm in somebody's house. I don't feel comfortable being in here. And I get the same feelings too there, but I believe they're in there in that area. And me and David, what we've been doing here recently is we've been going in, like he goes in and takes pictures, and we'll sit down and we'll go through the pictures, we'll blow them up and look for different things. And we understand about pareidolia, and we're not going to jump to any conclusions on anything. But this creek that where I found this print, it goes up into the hill. It goes up towards the hill, and it's bedrock, and the water was flowing in this creek, and I could hear what sounded like a cavern underneath this bedrock, like there's a cave system under this bedrock. And I think that's where these things are going or living or whatever. But I've got a picture, Lance, that looks like one of these creatures sitting on a log with its legs crossed, looking down the hill at me. And
it surprised me.
Yes, and it doesn't look like it's a very big one. And I haven't been back in there yet since I've taken that picture, but I'm going to go back in and look and try to debunk the picture because logs and stumps and stuff like that can mimic stuff like that.
Even then, if it's a tree stump, it was exactly shaped like it looked like somebody took a picture of a Sasquatch sitting down and pasted it onto this log. It was just awesome. I was like, man, this is pretty cool. And then below the log, I noticed what looked like the back of the head of a Sasquatch, kind of the sun reflecting off of it. So. Lance, have you heard of these things? Not people not seeing them with the eye, but they show up in pictures, because that's my case right now. I don't see these things, but I snap pictures, and I can see ear tips. I can see eyeballs looking at me. I mean, I'll show you some really good ones later. And people are just like, "Wow, what's in your bushes?" And I can't answer it. I don't know. I never say, "Hey, this is specifically a dog man." I just let the person decide. But man, it's some really bizarre stuff going on both of our areas where we
I,
both live.
I haven't had that too much at all, really, as far as taking photos and then seeing something like that. Now, that gets into a whole nother subject matter. My brothers and I were at a site in a very remote area, not too far from here, excuse me, as a crow
Hmm.
flies, about 7 miles. And we were down, we stayed the night to investigate. And this area was an old wood burn site where they had a terrible fire some years ago, and then the uh, the the foliage had come up so thick, and there was river bottoms, and it was undulating river bottoms, and it was just really just a strange feeling down there. And so we set up the tent, we stayed the night, and we filmed, and then we took shifts who would sleep and who would walk around, and we split up. And uh, while we were down there, I had an EMF reader, and the landowner gave us permission to go down there because he said he's having a lot of chickens stolen, and the fence is always locked. It's shut, no, not a lock on it, but it was just a latch,
Hmm.
and they were missing chickens. No blood, but they just ended up missing chickens. So anyway, we stayed the night, and I had an EMF reader. Long story short, I caught images on photos, taking pictures, and I ended up recording the entire evening of, let's just say, unrested spirits in that area. And they were communicating intelligent communication back to me. I took the MF reader initially because I thought maybe we might be able to get a frequency reading on these creatures because the landowner said he heard some god awful sounds that he had never ever heard before. And then shortly after that, the coyotes were going crazy. So I started down there, and Bill had my EMF reader, and it was just pegging out red, going off. And I thought, well, man, I just bought that. Is it already acting up? This is crazy. And then something came over me. Wait a minute. I'm going to ask a question. And when I did, I got an intelligent response. And we started taking pictures. And I didn't know that we were in a burial site.
I was getting ready to say burial site.
Yeah. And so I told the landowner the next day, he said, well, Lance, I didn't see you running out of there last night. So how'd it go? I said, well, we don't run. I said, we're more fascinated with what's going on to try and document. And he goes, well, I said, I didn't see any hairy creatures down there. I said, but here's what we got. And I told him, he says, oh my gosh, that confirms it. And I said, confirms what? And he goes, I didn't tell you, but my boy down there and my son-in-law, they saw a lot of apparitions down there. So one of the questions that I went back by myself and I recorded and I asked. And of course, when I go, I use protection. In other words, I am a man of faith, and I ask for God's blessing to be upon me, that nothing will follow me, nothing will attach to me. And I actually say that loud. And so I made it known, whoever I was communicating with, that I was a man of God. And so that was the first thing. The second thing is when I started asking, I said, we didn't know you were down here. We apologize for being down here. I said, but I have to ask, are you aware what we're here for of this hairy like being that's a giant that some people call a Sasquatch or a Bigfoot? Are you aware of anything like that down here existing? And it pegged off red instantly. I said, is there one or many? And the voice that came across my recorder was, Betty.
Wow.
Then I said, do you view these as a protector? how do you see these creatures, these beings of the trees? How do you view them? And the next response that I heard was demons. So
Wow.
that's kind of a creepy response. There's a lot of other. I've got like 2.5 hours of audio on this. When I went back by myself, I went back a third time, but it was an interesting. I don't recommend people doing it. Okay, that's the first thing I'll say. It's there's a lot of these shows that are out there on Discovery, Travel Channel, and everything, but this is a whole nother dimension. I don't recommend people doing it. You've really got to be right with the Lord when you go, because you don't know who you're talking to or what you're talking to. So I don't go to that. I still go to that place, but I don't try to communicate anymore. What was really interesting about that, and I'll just end it with this here, is that I said every time I'd leave, I'd say a prayer that nothing attaches to me. That I wish you peace, I wish you rest, I wish you nothing but goodness. And so I'm departing right now as I came. Peace be with you. The last two times
I kind of do the same thing. I just worded it different, man. And I do the same thing, brother. And that I just worded a little different and basically go in there with respect. But if I get the feeling they want me gone, I'll leave. You know,
I asked if I could come back, and I got a yes. I came back and I prayed, and I still got a response that I could come back. So I came back, and the next time I came back, not one response.
You got a yes telepathically?
No, I got a yes on my recorder.
Oh, wow. Okay.
When I say I got intelligent responses, the responses were I couldn't hear them with my ears. I'm kind of hard of hearing, firing so many firearms over the years anyway. But I would play back the recorder, and I would get yes, wow, no,
man.
And so, and this was it in the evening, dark, and just walking around with a red light, and then went back. I just got to know. My brother Lane, we're the same. If something's on the other side of the door scratching, we got to open the door. Yes, I don't want to. I got to open the door. My brother Lane is extreme, and then I'm probably right behind him. So I want to know if someone, as Lane would say, if someone sees a deep dark cave, other people go, that doesn't make us. When I say that, I'm not trying to brag by no means. I just want to know. I want to explore. I want to see what's there. I want to know what's there so I can tell other people, hey, this is what I saw and this is what it did. And that's just been our nature.
Yeah, I've gotten to the point, Lance, that we've established that they're here, and Lee has, you have, and a lot of our friends have, and I'm ready for the next step and research whatever that is,
Well, I hope to see some of you guys at some conferences, maybe in the next couple of years.
Do you hit Hanobia, or is that the name of? Do you go to Hanobia?
Yeah, I'll be there this year.
Oh, awesome! I would love to go there. I'm in Indiana. I don't know if I can make the journey, but I might try.
Well, Lance, if you're ever like by the Windstar Red River area in Oklahoma, that's only an hour away from me.
Oh, okay.
Yes, sir. I'm in Fort Worth.
Oh, yeah, you're not too far away. I've got a brother there in Frisco.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, Frisco's a pretty town.
It is.
Pretty city. Or a city now.
Yeah, it's grown like crazy.
It's grown.
It has.
Well, Lance, I know it's getting late where you're at.
It's a blessing. I feel bad he's getting eaten up by bugs out there, man. And
I know.
I got coyotes. I got nature with me. My wife says we got nature.
He's got mosquitoes the size of coyotes out there.
Here in Texas, we call them birds because they're really like the size of birds.
I've got my off right here. So it had rained, so there's a lot of mosquitoes, but I got a little trick when I do. I like doing outdoor interviews. Every time I come home, I'm always outside. That's just my weekends. The only time I go in the house is to usually write or go to bed. That's it.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I'm outside all the time doing something. I'm fiddling around in my kind of podcast studio, but I like to be outside. But when you're doing these outside, you want a fan on you, and that keeps the mosquitoes away.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
So I've got a fan on me right now, and so
You got fans watching you too.
Before we play it, I always like to ask this question. Anybody getting into this research right now, what would you tell them?
Well, I would say, wow, great question.
Thank you.
I would say start if you really want to get into this and have fun, like with anything. When you start having fun doing anything, including this research, learn some basics at first. Okay, what you want to know is how to navigate in the woods during the daytime. Uh, don't navigate at night until you get a lot more savvy about things. In other words, find someone that's a mentor, and that someone, whether it's a show or someone in your town or neighborhood or an association that you can kind of mentor, that'll take you under the wing. And I would say in this community, there's some awesome people, and they would love to do that. So I would say get with someone that kind of knows the woods, knows sounds, knows the indigenous animals of the area, so kind of teach you. And so when you start really having fun, it's fun the whole time, but it's especially fun when you're safe. You're safe from yourself and you're safe around others. That's when you're having a good time. It's about fellowship, of course, but you want to be mindful that these creatures, we still don't understand them, like we've been talking the last couple of hours, that there's unpredictability. So I'm a bit odd because I read primate literature. I look at all kinds of interesting things that may be boring to one person. And you don't have to go in that depth by no means, but I would say learn all you can, be a student, read everything you can, listen to the shows. The shows will reveal a lot of interesting features about these creatures, and you can take notes. When I first got started, I have composition books filled. I'd take notes when I was listening to a show. I would just listen. I would take notes. And so I was taking notes about what they did, how they did what they did. I didn't always know why or how they did it, but I'd write down a characteristic or a feature or an action, what they did. So that was just me. But I would say learn all you can, listen to the shows, listen to your show, read books. A buddy of mine, John Vanderventer, he's awesome. He's down in Honeby, and so he's got some great books. Buy the books. You go to a conference, buy someone's book that knows a little about these creatures. Just every little bit helps. And then, when you're safe and you're having good fellowship and you're staying and your eyes and your ears and your senses are alert, it is fun. But just be mindful that these creatures are independent, they're unpredictable, and don't go by yourself.
They're no joke, and they're not like Harry and the Henderson.
No, you don't. No, not at all.
Don't go poking the bear.
Don't go poking the bear. You're not gonna put a collar on it and call it, Henry. It just doesn't work that way. And these people that say, "Well, I'm gonna,"
and don't try to feed it a sandwich because you may become the sandwich.
Well, you might be scratching scratches and knocks on your door at night. Hey, give me another one.
You mean like knocks at the door at 4:00 in the morning and you have to call the police because you think somebody's out there?
Yeah, when all he wants is a sandwich.
Yeah, I had that happen, and it was snow on the ground, and there wasn't a footprint in sight. And my wife heard it too.
So you got to be. So I don't know if that was I've never been asked that question, which was a good question. It's just I learned from shows. I learned from reading. I read documentaries. I do my own field research. I take a lot of photos in the woods. I study a lot of things that aren't really cryptid related, like the UFOs. I study a lot of um, entomology, insects, a lot of foliage, all kinds of things that could uh, sustain something very large that requires a heavy caloric intake every day. So as you start
Yeah,
to read all this,
I'm still ready for the Book of Enoch. I'm slightly into it, a little bit of it, but I'm very interested in to find out the rest.
yeah,
Lance,
yeah.
do you think these things can store food? I think they can store food underground. It's just
Oh,
a thought,
absolutely.
just a
Yes,
thought, a
sir.
theory, and I think they gather all year round.
I do
And
too.
Well, yeah, think about it. They could just snatch something up, like a couple deer, like nothing, and take it underground, and I mean that's food for a while.
yeah, and they
I
could
think they
smoke it.
do. I think there's some level of a storage capacity that they have now. How they do it, I'm not sure. I would love to learn that. See that.
Do you know about them blocking the cave systems like in Pennsylvania? The DNR been going in and putting up big gates in front of the cave systems.
I've heard that. I've not spoken to anybody that has directly into me, but I have heard of that, which again would not surprise me.
There's
Because these DNR.
there's a video out.
They're all working together.
There's a video out from Jeff in the Woods, and he's up in the Pennsylvania area. That's where I saw it. He had footage of one of these gates that had been put up, and the game wardens had come in and put cameras all around the cave entrance, like around the perimeter of it, and it looked like something had tried to beat its way out of these gates that were put up.
Yeah,
the bars. Yeah.
Yeah, and the other thing is that
the one that had the Illuminati triangle on it.
No, this was Jeff in the Woods. This is something totally. And these bars that were on the caves, they weren't no lightweight, like iron gate bars. These were like almost looked like guardrails on the side of the highway type gates. Like they poured the entrance, like poured footers and buried the stuff in cement, and really whoever did it really went to work doing it. The footage that I saw. But I thought that was interesting that something could beat that from the inside out and bend those bars, and bend that steel, and it had to have been something hitting it a ton and a big whatever it was. So that might be something you might want to check into watching if you get a chance to watch some of his footage. It was pretty interesting, I thought.
I will, absolutely. I sure will.
Lance, it's been great having you on the show. I know it's late there. Thank you for taking your time and out of your day and coming on our show. Awesome. And thank you for your working knowledge of that you shared with us about the chiropractor business and the anatomy of these creatures. And God bless you for coming on the show, brother. We appreciate it.
We're all learning more from you, man. And I want to tell everyone, please check out Monster 911. There are so many episodes that will just blow you away, and that's why I'm binge watching them now.
And it'll fill in a lot of blanks of what's going on.
Yeah, you'll start connecting dots with a lot of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's what I say a lot.
And let us know about that book, man. You don't you don't have to send us one. We'll buy one.
Oh, that's okay. I appreciate you guys inviting me, and I love working with podcast shows. We're all learning, and we want. I want you guys to grow, and so I appreciate you, and it's been an honor to speak with you.
Yeah, we just want to, I know we don't have big numbers. It's not about that. If we can help one person, then I'm happy.
Right.
Absolutely.
That's right. Because that one person can help another person, and then we did our job, because we know they exist, and we both like helping people, and we're all in this for answers, and we're ready for more answers. I am anyway.
We're all got a piece of the puzzle. We just need to put it together and come together, and
absolutely. I think that's a great mindset. For
yes,
sure.
sir. You want to lead us out on a prayer, David? You want to do it this time?
I was going to see if you wanted to do a moment of silence for the children.
Yeah, we could do that, or I'll say a prayer. Thank you, Lord Jesus, for having Lance come on the show, and thank you for our family and friends. We pray for the children born and unborn, and we pray for this nation, that you watch over this nation and protect us and keep us safe, and keep everybody that goes in the woods looking for these creatures safe, and just protect us through these hard times, and help us to come out ahead on the other side, Lord. Thank you for all that you do for us. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
Amen, Lee. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank
Hey,
you.
good night, everybody.
Thank
Good night,
you guys
everybody.
so much.
You're
Good night,
very
everyone.
welcome.
Thank you,
It was
Lance.
great. Thank
Hey,
you.
we'll be keeping in touch, brother.
You betcha. Take care.
Adios.
Grandpa, speak English, please. Listen, I need to understand what's happening to me.
Oh, you gotta get out of here. I belong here. Why aren't you at Red Deer Table like old man says? What is the big deal about that place? Can't I get a straight answer around here? It's a power deal. Fast Elk found out, so they killed him. Well, they're gonna kill you if you stay here now. Come on, let's go. Well, sometimes they have to kill us. They have to kill us. Because they can't break our spirit. Look, I don't have to do this. You don't have any choice. I'm trying to help you people. Now, why won't you accept that? It's in our DNA. You have to do what old man says. What makes you such a threat? We choose the right to be who we are. We know the difference between the reality of freedom and the illusion of freedom. There's a way to live with Earth and a way not to live with Earth. We choose the way of Earth.